Chapter 293. The child walked briskly and safely entered the array. She closed her eyes to feel the subtleties of the array before quickly entering the maple pavilion. The first floor of the maple pavilion. The child looked left and right and discovered that other than the four walls, there was nothing else inside. Xiaomu pondered over her master's words and ran forward with small steps. On the left side of this empty room was a spiral staircase. The child climbed up the stairs in one breath and made several turns. She didn't encounter any obstructions and her mystic energy flowed freely. She didn't feel uncomfortable at all. So strange. The child stopped with a palpitating heart and looked around for a while. She even ran to the center of the room on this floor, wanting to sense the crystal platform that her master had mentioned. In the end, there was no reaction. She could only continue climbing up the stairs. She felt as if she had climbed more than 1,000 floors. She couldn't have any other thoughts and couldn't blame her master for tricking her. But why didn't you say earlier that there were hundreds of stairs on each floor? From the outside, it looked like an ordinary 2-story pavilion, but in reality, how tall was it? It felt as if he was climbing a tower that was as tall as the sky. She kept climbing without limit and felt like there was no end. The child had been counting the time in her heart ever since she entered. 2 hours should have passed by now. However, the path looked endless and there was no reaction from the center of the room. It couldn't be that after 4 hours, he didn't get anything and was directly teleported out, right? Just thinking about it made her angry. The child, who had originally felt a little tired and wanted to rest to catch her breath, hurriedly climbed up the stairs again when she realized that there might not be enough time. The space in this pavilion must have been modified by that powerful talisman master. Under the influence of the array, the space in the entire pavilion was different from the outside world. Xiaomu wiped away her sweat and raised her head to look at the endless spiral staircase. She couldn't see the end of it, and her heart turned cold. Xiaomu gritted her teeth in a huff and took out a small bottle of water from her pocket, drinking 2 mouthfuls. He immediately slapped 2 speed talismans on himself, stacking them together to increase his speed. Within 20 minutes, his speed had increased by 3 times. The little fellow rushed up like a shooting star until the 2 speed talismans were completely exhausted and fell from her body. Xiaomu's head crashed into a sturdy wall. Her head came into intimate contact with the thick wall. And with a bang, her little head almost fainted from the impact. Oh my God, her smooth little forehead is probably bruised from knocking on the ground. There was nothing in front of him, but he had indeed been blocked by an invisible wall. Xiaomu rubbed the pain on her forehead and reflexively took 2 more steps up. Suddenly, a vast and mighty pressure directly slapped her down the steps. Caught off guard, the child rolled down and landed on the platform. The small group of people fell quickly, but they got up even faster. Rubbing her small waist, the little fellow jumped up from the ground. She looked back and saw a crystal platform rising from the ground in the middle of the house. The child hurriedly ran over and saw a black ball placed on the crystal platform. Other than that, there was nothing else in the room. He had to inject his profound energy into it. The child recalled Murong Sun's words and walked up the steps to the black ball. She slowly placed her small hand on the black ball. From the corner of her eye, she saw a number carved on the crystal platform, 6. Chapter 294. Could it be that she went up to the 6th floor? This thought flashed through Arbor's mind, but upon further thought, it was somewhat impossible. From what Master said, it seemed like being able to go up to the 4th floor was already considered pretty good. This pavilion's actual space had 7 floors. How could a little level 6 mystic cultivator like her reach the 6th floor in one go? How could those level 7 and level 8 senior sisters endure this? So, this number probably didn't represent the 6th floor. But why was this number engraved here? Arbor shook her head and temporarily cast aside some random thoughts before directly placing her hand on the round black ball. Soon, a faint radiance appeared on the surface of the round ball and circled around the child's small palm. Arbor hurriedly injected mystic energy into the round black ball. Ever since the little fellow advanced to the phenomenal success stage of level 6 mystic cultivator, she had never used mystic energy. Now that she used it, She immediately felt that the concentration of mystic energy was much deeper than before. An endless stream of mystic energy was injected into the round black ball. 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, the child's small hand, which was placed on the round ball, was somewhat stiff. What kind of scam was this? Why did it seem like it couldn't absorb enough of her mystic energy, and endlessly let her inject mystic energy into it? After a mystic cultivator's mystic energy was completely depleted, it would be very troublesome and slow for them to recover on their own. Furthermore, it would have a negative effect on the body, and could even directly cause the mystic cultivator to faint. The child attempted to move her small hand away from the black ball, but it ended in failure. Her hand was sucked onto it and couldn't move at all. Sensing that the mystic energy in her body was decreasing at a terrifying speed, the child couldn't remain calm. She hurriedly mentally communicated with the sapling, and had it release the heart of paradise. Chirp chirp, give me some mid-grade magnetite. The more the better. Quickly. Chirp. The little white squirrel immediately hopped out of the paradise with a large mid-grade magnetite ore in its arms. It peeled off the outer shell at the fastest speed, and placed it next to Arbor's hand. Arbor hurriedly placed her other hand on the mid-grade magnetite, and took a deep breath, quickly absorbing the large amount of mystic energy in the magnetite. Chirp chirp, continue taking. The little white squirrel hastily hopped back and forth. Its speed was extremely fast and could carry 1 to 2 mid-grade magnetite of different sizes out at a time, until Arbor absorbed 17 or 18 mid-grade magnetite stones in one go. The black ball in front of her suddenly emitted a strong light that enveloped her entire body. At the same time, Arbor abruptly felt that the level 7 mystic cultivation barrier that he had been suppressing all this time had been broken through. She didn't have time to check her body's condition because a large wave of things appeared in front of her. She discovered that it was as if she was walking in a pitch-black void. Her small body floated in the air as profound skills that were wrapped in halos of light or profound armaments that were stored in iron boxes quickly floated past her eyes. His hands and feet would often touch some things that floated over, and those things would pause for a few seconds before quickly floating away. At this time, Morong Sun's slightly anxious voice was heard from outside the pavilion. "Disciple, where did you run off to? There's not much time left. There's still 15 minutes left. You can take 2 things. Choose quickly." Arbor was extremely anxious. She floated in the air, so her mobility was somewhat restricted. Her large eyes were eagerly looking at the treasures that floated back and forth, trying to discern which one had the thicker mystic energy covering it. At this moment, her eyes suddenly lit up as she stared at a profound skill that was wrapped in a ball of congealed light, and was flying towards her at an extremely fast speed. "It's you." Our dear Xiaomu joyfully stretched out her small hand. Suddenly, a tattered book that looked like a hand-sewn thread-bound book flew out from the side. It looked like a broken book that was about to fall apart. With a smack, it hit her dumbfounded little face. Chapter 295. Following that, the little fellow looked on helplessly as the profound skill that she had her eyes on, which was wrapped in profound energy, brushed past her little palm with a whoosh and shot out. Her profound skill. Don't go. Her profound skill. Arbor waved her little hand, and directly swept that lousy book away. While her body was upside down and her head was facing downwards, she used all her might to slide her 4 limbs as she anxiously chased after that profound skill. However, in the next second, with a crisp paw sound, that damned lousy book once again flew over and rashly smacked onto her head. The little fellow's entire face turned green. What the hell was this lousy book doing? The other profound skills were all beautifully packaged, wrapped in profound energy as they wandered around in this space. Just looking at them was extremely pleasing to the eye. What about it? It didn't have the looks, it didn't have the profound energy, it was so tattered that it looked like it was about to fall apart. Once, twice F***ck, it smacked onto her head for the 3rd time. Scram! Seeing that the lousy book was about to smack her face again, our dear Xiaomu angrily punched over, and directly sent that lousy book flying. Little thing, not to mention that it was ugly and dirty, the most important thing was that this lousy book didn't even have a trace of profound energy on it. How could she endure this? She came here to search for treasures, not to plunder trash. The little fellow kicked her little legs and glanced at the profound skill that had flown away without a trace. She bitterly wrinkled her little brows. Ooh, her profound skill. The profound skill that she had set her eyes on. A piece of meat that was about to enter her mouth flew away just like that. Pa! 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 Io, what the hell? She slanted her eyes to look back and couldn't help but faint from anger. The back of her head was smashed by that lousy book, until she cried out in pain. The little fellow hugged her head and scurried away like a kangaroo. But there wasn't any force in this space, so where could she run to? She saw that lousy book chasing after her butt and smacking the back of her head fiercely. Do you have to freaking have such a vengeful heart? Why was it that after being smacked so many times, that lousy book that looked like it was about to shatter didn't fall apart? Although it didn't fall apart, the dust that came out of it almost choked her to death. How long has this lousy book been in the Maple Pavilion? Damn it, every time he patted it, there would be a pile of dust. No matter how he looked at it, it did not look like a treasure at all. Instead, it looked more like a piece of junk. Xiaomu clutched her head in confusion and yelled, "Stop taking pictures, stop taking pictures. Take it. I'll just take it." Xiaomu stretched out her two little fingers and pinched the corner of the book with a look of disgust. The damned book calmed down. It really was quite miraculous. Xiaomu tore a piece of clothing and wrapped the tattered book in it. She even wrapped it 2 more times to prevent it from being exposed. Then she solemnly put it into her bosom. It was not that she cherished it so much that she wanted to wrap it with the corner of her clothes. It was because it was too dirty. Moreover, it didn't smell much from afar, but it smelled a little stinky up close. Xiaomu really wanted to cry now. She didn't even know which cesspit this lousy book was fished up from. Grandmaster Grandma was too deceitful. Why did she put this lousy book on this floor? If she had known, she would have gone to the 3rd floor or even the 2nd floor to look for treasures. It would have been better than this floor. She finally had the chance to go to the treasure pavilion to look for an excellent mystic technique, but she was actually deceived like this. The more Xiaomu thought about it, the more her heart ached. She moved her limbs and looked around, thinking that it was fortunate that she could only take one. There wasn't much time left. She just had to hurry and find a more reliable mystic technique manual. Chapter 296. She saw it. The mystic technique book she took a fancy to earlier. The little fellow strove to move her limbs and strenuously chased after the mystic technique book covered in dense mystic energy. Just as her hands were about to hug the mystic technique book, Arbor's face finally revealed a bit of anticipation. Suddenly, a bone-chilling rectangular iron box fell from the sky and landed heavily in her outstretched hands. The weight of the unknown object caused her slender arms to sink a few inches. Our dear Xiaomu's anticipation instantly froze on her face, and her stoic face was taut to the extreme. Oh heavens! What the heck was this? This cool iron box did not have any openings at all, and did not look like a box for storing mystic techniques at all. It was like a rectangular lump of iron that had been completely molded together. There was not a single gap between the two. Arbor's face turned green from anger. She hastily tossed it away as if she caught a hot potato. However, in the next second, she felt like she was being pulled out of the void. It was over. Time was up. Ah. Darling Xiaomu instantly felt like she was possessed by the god of misfortune. She had been in there for 4 hours, but all she had brought out was a tattered book. The little fellow felt like her pitiful soul received 1,000,000 points of damage. She was swiftly transported out of Maple Pavilion, and saw her master Morong Sun's grinning face as soon as she landed. All of her aggrieved emotions immediately surged up, and she pattered over and crashed into Morong Sun's arms. What is it? What is it? Morong Sun jolted in fright, but before she could say anything, the talisman matrix flickered and returned to normal. The bracelet and talisman key separated from the talisman matrix and bounced into Morong Sun's hand. At the same time, a strange iron box was tossed out of the matrix and was about to hit the back of the little fellow's head. Morong Sun hastily caught it. Our dear Xiaomu drooped her head listlessly and glanced at the iron box listlessly. Master, let's go. Why would there be an iron box in Maple Pavilion? Judging from the little fellow's appearance, she probably did not have a bountiful harvest. She couldn't have picked up this iron box, right? As her master, she naturally could not discourage her anymore, so she carried her all the way out of Sky Peak. Morong Sun cautiously asked, "Disciple, did you notice which level we reached? Do you see the numbers on the crystal platform?" 6. Our dear Qiaomu was not in high spirits, so she leaned on Morong Sun's shoulder and mumbled listlessly. No matter who entered the treasure house and ended up picking up a broken item for no reason, they would not be in a good mood. Who would care about which floor they entered? She was too embarrassed to tell Morong Sun that other than this metal box, she also picked up a lousy book. However, Morong Sun looked down at her disciple strangely and hastily smoothed her hair with a smile. It's fine, it's fine. It doesn't matter if you didn't find anything good today. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future." After escorting the child back to First Peak, Morong Sun pulled her hand and escorted her back to her own courtyard. This was the advantage of being a personal disciple. Every personal disciple would be given their own independent courtyard. Although it wasn't big, it had a living room, study, cultivation room, and even an alchemy room. Morong Sun already knew that her youngest disciple was coming, so she had already prepared everything in the room 2 months ago, so she could directly move in now. After pacifying the little fellow, Morong Sun hurried to Main Peak to speak with the sect master, and left Arbor's small courtyard. Chapter 297. Arbor lay on the soft bed, propping up her chin with both hands. She stared at the worn-out book and metal box placed at the head of the bed in a daze, as if she had nothing to live for. It wasn't until a rustling sound came from the window that Arbor looked up and saw Weak Chick, who had just come back from wandering around somewhere, crawling in through the window. Coo. The little fellow couldn't be bothered to argue with it. She lay on the bed motionlessly, not even bothering to lift a finger. Her little heart was hurting right now, so she didn't want to say anything. The furry little chick jumped onto the bed and snuggled next to Arbor before finding a place to lie down comfortably. One adult and one chick lay on the bed without communicating for a long time. The little fellow's eyes stared unblinkingly at the worn-out book and box at the head of the bed, as if she was glaring at an enemy. Only after a long time did she let out a long sigh. "Congratulations, Master, for entering the ranks of Level 7 Mystic Cultivators." The little tree Chiochio's excited voice echoed in her mind. Only then did Arbor remember that in order to replenish the mystic energy in her body, she had continuously absorbed 17 to 18 pieces of mid-grade magnetite, and successfully advanced to a Level 7 Mystic Cultivator at Maple Pavilion. Sigh. The little fellow lay on the bed and let out another long sigh. Even if she advanced to a Level 7 Mystic Cultivator, it couldn't stop her current depressed mood. Master, why are you unhappy?" Chiochio's noisy voice continuously rippled in her mind. If this lousy tree was in front of her right now, she would definitely slap it to death. "Master, you've advanced to a Level 7 Mystic Cultivator now. Although you're only at the entry stage, you're still a Level 7 Mystic Cultivator." "Oh my ass." The child crawled up from the bed and grumpily said, "Hurry up and say what you have to say." "Master, Chiochio will help you integrate the Heart of Paradise into the star domain right now, okay?" Chiochio's excited voice kept rising. Master, are you surprised? Are you happy? Although the other parts of the star domain still can't be opened, at least you'll have Paradise Planet in the future." The child pounded the bed and said, "Stop talking nonsense, hurry up and do it." After saying so much, she actually had no idea what the lousy tree was mumbling about. "Then Master will feel a little pain," Chiochio said softly, and Arbor felt a piercing pain spread through his body. It was as if her dantian had been cut open, and something was embedded in it. That kind of bone-piercing pain was not something that could be described with words. How was this a little bit of pain? Before the child fainted from the pain, he cursed the 18 generations of Little Tree's ancestors in his heart. She knew that the little tree was too unreliable. Little junior sister. A soft murmur drilled into her ears, gradually waking her up. Goo. The little chick sensed that its master had woken up. It shook its green feathers and nudged her body. Arbor opened his eyes slightly and met Su Shanshan and Xue Zhao's worried gazes. Eldest senior sister? Second senior sister. At first, the child didn't understand what was going on. After a while, he realized that he had fainted from the pain caused by the small tree. Little tree was pretending to be dead. He didn't say anything even though he knew she was awake. Mystic energy silently circulated through her meridians. After discovering that there was nothing wrong with her body, the child finally relaxed slightly. She struggled to sit up. Su Shanshan hurriedly reached out to support her and stuffed a soft cushion behind her back. Lie down for a while more. I'm fine, eldest senior sister. Little fellow, if you're tired, sleep a little more. Don't force yourself, Xue Xiao said. Chapter 298. I'm really fine. Arbor glanced at Xue Xiao helplessly. She couldn't tell her senior sisters that she had been tricked by the little tree. Xiaomu sat up straight and took out 2 blue storage talismans from her pocket. She handed them to Su Shanshan and Xue Xiao. For you. Gifts. She had put some mid-grade magnetite and 3 peaches in each storage talisman. She had wanted to give them to her 2 senior sisters, but hadn't found a chance to talk to them alone. Now was the perfect time. Su Shanshan was taken aback for a moment, and a faint smile flashed across her cold eyes. Xue Xiao was even more direct. She pounced on Xiaomu and gave her a big bear hug, smacking a kiss on her little face. Io, our little junior sister, is really awesome. Arbor's little face was red. After sending her 2 senior sisters off, she wanted to lie down for a while more, but then she heard the little tree's weak voice in her mind. Little master. Arbor chuckled coldly. I thought you were going to play dead until tomorrow. Little tree Qiuqiu laughed dryly. Suddenly it raised its voice and asked excitedly. Master, do you want to come in now? Come in, you'll definitely like the master here. Wait. Arbor hurriedly opened her inner vision and scanned her body. Then, to her surprise and understanding, she saw that her dantian, which was originally like a starry night, was completely dark. Only the little tree supporting her dantian was emitting a weak green fluorescence. Now, in the front left of the starry sky, a small star was lit up, flickering with a faint light. Could it be? This was the paradise that had been integrated into the star domain. Student Arbor's eyes suddenly lit up. Xiaomu's breathing tightened. She retracted her inner vision and couldn't help but clench her fists tightly. She tried to maintain her composure and said in a calm voice, Qiuqiu, what you meant before was, you integrated the paradise into my dantian, right? Yes. Why didn't you freaking tell me that earlier? You didn't even get to the point after talking for so long. Xiaomu unconsciously rolled her eyes. Then she calmed herself down and asked softly, Qiuqiu, what you're saying is that I am me, and my dantian is equivalent to a star domain, right? Yes. Qiuqiu gave another word. You said that there's a main star in my domain. Even if I fully open my inner world, all the assets I have will still be less than a drop in the ocean on the main planet. Master, you have a good memory. Qiuqiu hurriedly flattered him, feeling that his master's calm voice contained a hint of excitement. Then when can I open up my main star? Arbor quickly went straight to the point. She finally understood what it meant when Qiuqiu kept mentioning star domain and star domain all day long. This meant that whether it was the land of heritage or the grotto heaven immortal abode, Xiaomu could refine them into her own star domain, just like this heart of paradise. It was refined from the paradise grounds, and it had already become a part of the region of stars now. Qiuqiu had already named it Paradise Star. Then, Master, do you want to come in and take a look? Qiuqiu's cheerful voice rang out in the depths of her mind. Arbor pursed his lips. Okay. In the next instant, the scenery in front of her suddenly changed, and the stars shifted. As far as the eye could see, large swaths of peach blossoms flew in succession and fell down like snowflakes, staining the hem of her dress. In the evening, there seemed to be a faint ray of sunlight spilling into the depths of the peach forest. In the distance, the magnetite mine rose and fell continuously. Nearby, a stream flowed gurgling, winding its way to a jade-green lake. Master, the little white squirrel jumped excitedly and pounced toward her. Chapter 299. Chirp. The white squirrel cheerfully jumped onto Arbor's shoulder and lightly rubbed against her porcelain white neck. Arbor reached out to stroke its soft white fur in a rare occasion. Recalling what she said before, she couldn't help but crease her small brows and ask again. Chio, you still haven't answered me. When can the main planet open? Master, I'm here. Chio's cheerful voice rang next to her legs. Arbor looked down in search of the sound and saw an adorable little tree ant waving its branches at her. The little tree ant only reached her waist in height. Its 2 branches formed 2 thin arms, and its 2 round, beady eyes were embedded in the tree trunk. 4 to 5 tender leaves grew on its small, pointy head, and the leaves on its head swayed back and forth as the branches swayed. Chio. This was Arbor's first time being able to physically approach the little tree ant Chio. Previously, she had always used her inner vision to look at Chio in her dantian, and at most used her apparition to approach it. MHM. Master, I am Chio. My main body can't move in the star domain, but I can break off a branch and use it as a doppelganger to help Master manage Paradise Planet. The little tree ant hopped up and down while pulling on her belt, easily jumping onto her arm, and then onto her left shoulder. It kicked the little white squirrels but domineeringly occupied our dear Xiaomu's left shoulder. Master, Chio missed you so much. Master, long time no see. You're becoming more and more beautiful. There was no mistake in flattery, so Chio started by flattering her. The little stoic was unmoved and expressionlessly glanced at it from the corner of her eyes. I asked you a question but you still haven't answered. Chio's beady eyes immediately drooped, and it drooped its head in indescribable guilt. You're a tree ant. Aren't your expressions a bit too rich? Speak, I can take it. Arbor was already accustomed to the little tree's unreliability, so she wasn't surprised by this. Chio immediately raised its tree head and said a long string of words at an extremely fast speed. Although Master has already advanced to a level 7 mystic cultivator, it's merely a small step on the great path of cultivation. Let alone activating the main planet, it's not even possible for us to activate Fish Orchid Planet right now. Wait, the Fish Orchid Planet? The little fellow was beginning to grasp the main point of the deceptive ball's words. Master, what did you say? You said Fish Orchid Planet. Fish Orchid Planet? Did I mention Fish Orchid Planet? What is the Fish Orchid Star? The small tree's beady eyes were filled with confusion. See, what's there to say to a brainless tree? The first 3 sentences were said, but the last 3 were immediately forgotten. Xiaomu couldn't be bothered to retort, so she helplessly grabbed it and brought it to her face. Her fingertip poked the leaf on its head. Other than the main star, how many planets have I activated in this star domain? I mean before? Other than the main planet, there are other planets? The little tree Chio looked at its little master in bewilderment. Arbor took a deep breath and suppressed the lava that was about to erupt. With a stoic face, he deliberately forced a stiff smile at the little tree. Chio. Master's expression was a bit frightening. How old are you? Why is your memory so bad? Chio immediately said aggrievedly. I don't remember how old I am either. The little tree ant was flung out in a perfect arc in the air. However, it quickly ran back with tears in its eyes and hugged Arbor's little feet as it shouted. I remember, Master. Other than the main planet, we also activated this Paradise Planet. Arbor, haha. Chapter 300. Master, look, after this paradise merged with the star domain, it's more than 10 times bigger than before. The sapling Chio cheerfully hugged its little master's foot and ran forward with her. Although this Paradise Planet is pitifully small compared to any other planet, it's still pretty good. It's already as big as 5 or 6 Shijio cities, right? Previously, your supplies stuffed the paradise to the brim. Once it merged with the star domain, look. Those supplies can only fill a tiny corner of Paradise Planet. The sapling Chio continued to clamor. Xiaomu lowered her head to glance at the sapling. This fellow would always say thought-provoking things inadvertently, and then completely forget what he said afterwards. What should she say about it? Also, the mystic energy here is really dense, isn't it, Master? Master, If you want to come in and cultivate in the future, just call Qiu, and Qiu will immediately carry you inside. The little stoic expressionlessly looked down at the sapling. This is my Dantian, my own star domain. I can't freely enter and leave by myself? You even have to carry me inside. I can't enter by myself? Qiu looked down at its branches and shook its head, regret written all over its tree face. That won't do, master. Your cultivation is too weak, so you can't enter and exit by yourself. You still need Qiu to help you. This time, Qiu was kicked too far into the sky by its little master, and it rolled for a long time before it could roll back. The little sapling hugged its little master's foot, and immediately cried out to express its loyalty. Master, don't worry. In the future, whenever you want to enter or leave, I'll immediately fulfill your wish. How infuriating. She couldn't completely control her own Dantian's mystic domain, and still had to rely on a tree that claimed a mountain as its king. Send me out immediately. Our dear Qiaomu huffed, and threw down this sentence. As soon as she stepped out of Paradise Planet, she heard several people calling little junior sister, outside the court. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. It seemed her senior sisters had come to find her when she disappeared just now. Looking at the sky, it was already completely dark. She had been in Paradise Planet for quite a long time. The time in Paradise Planet corresponded to the time in the outside world. When she entered Paradise Planet just now, she had already noticed that it was evening in the outside world, and it was also evening in Paradise Planet. The child hurriedly jumped off the bed. Without even putting on his shoes, he opened the door and called out, "Senior sister." Su Shanshan immediately turned her head around. Under the night sky, she was dressed in green, and her long hair was slightly scattered. Her cold face gradually relaxed a little when she turned back to meet Xiao Mu's gaze. Su Shanshan hurried over to her. "Little junior sister, where did you go just now? You're not familiar with the first peak yet, so don't run around." "I know, senior sister." Su Shanshan's slightly cold hand held her soft and cute little hand. Although his hands were cold, his heart was burning. The food distributed by the sky snow peak was quickly transported to the 3 peaks. The disciples of the 3 peaks all had a sumptuous dinner tonight. It was as lively as a festival. Murong Sun finally succeeded in her persuasion, and the sect master ordered the next day. After discussion, the 3 peaks decided that each peak would be formed by mystic cultivators above level 5 who were at least 12 years old. Every month, the 3 peaks would take turns to send a group of people out to accept missions to cover their daily expenses. Although Murong Sun was burdened by mundane affairs, going out to experience the world was also one of her cultivation methods. It not only trained her vision and strength but also her mental state. That night, our dear Qiaomu closed the door and fiddled with that lousy book. She drew a basin of water and soaked it in. Chapter 301. Did you think that the child wanted to soak some treasure out of this broken book? Of course not. She just wanted to wash this dirty and smelly book. It would be best if it was washed rotten. If it was washed rotten, it could be thrown out along with the basin of water. She soaked the book in the basin and repeatedly soaked it. She pinched a corner of the book and took it out. She thought that the book would soften, but it didn't. It was still that hand-sewn book that looked like it would fall apart at any time. It looked like it was going to fall apart, but the pages didn't move at all. There wasn't even a trace of water stain. What was going on? The child squatted by the basin and used 2 fingers to poke at the broken book lying in the water. After a while, the child was at her wit's end. She glanced at the flickering candle flame on the table. She had an idea and ran to the table with the broken book. She lay on the table and used the candle flame to burn a corner of the book. She watched as the candle flame floated up and down through the thin pages of the book. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't burn it. What kind of book is this? The child was tired and threw the book on the table. She ran back to the bed angrily and jumped onto it. She covered her head and fell asleep. Broken book and broken iron box. She went to Maple Pavilion and took these 2 things. She would start her closed-door training tomorrow. She didn't want to see anyone. After the child fell asleep on the bed, The broken book that was thrown on the cold table suddenly emitted a red light in the middle of the night. The whole book turned into a ball of red mist and burrowed into the child's bedding. The child was sleeping soundly. Her small body was curled up in the bedding. The moment the red mist burrowed into her forehead, she felt a faint stinging pain. She suddenly opened her eyes and stared blankly for about half a minute. Then, she lifted her long eyelashes and closed her eyes tiredly. The next day, the child slept until the sun was high in the sky before he woke up. She sat on the bed and looked at the bright sunlight outside the window. She was still in a daze. So strange. Ever since she was reborn, she had never slept so late in her life. She walked around the room and patted the back of her head. She felt that the room was missing something. After washing up, the child sat at the table and poured himself a cup of herbal tea. His hand that was holding the teacup suddenly froze. His gaze fell on the corner of the table as he tried to recall yesterday's events. She clearly remembered that she had thrown that lousy book on the table. Where did the book go? She tilted her head and looked under the table, but she didn't see anything. He frowned and scanned his surroundings, but he didn't find anything out of the ordinary. There wasn't any strange scent left in the room, so it shouldn't be that someone deliberately came in to take her lousy book. Master, master! Chio's slightly excited voice rang in her ears. Why did you come out? She glanced and saw a little treant tugging at the corner of her dress. Master, are you surprised? Are you happy? Chio can come out for a short while now. The little treant shook Xiaomu's skirt and chuckled. Master, it's fine as long as you have me by your side. You? Where's the coolest place? The nimble little golem suddenly jumped to the ground and lifted its foot to kick the small tree. Chio was caught off guard and was really kicked out by the golem. How preposterous. Chio rolled quickly and rolled back even faster. It pounced over and hung upside down on Arbor's clothes. Master, 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 who is this weird-looking fellow? Chapter 302. Big Treasure had been by her side for so long, so Arbor didn't believe that Chio didn't recognize it. Xiaomu grabbed one with each hand and pulled both of them down. She threw them on the table and left the room after saying, You two get along well. Wait, master. The little treant waved its two thin branches and jumped up from the table. Why, you should take a look at your conscience first. Xiaomu turned around in confusion. She was about to find senior sister Sue to take her on a tour of the first peak. What was there to see about her conscience? Every time she saw that lazy apparition, a certain Jojo would get angry. The apparition was so diligent in her previous life, but it became lazy in this life. This wasn't good. Master, there was something in your conscience in the latter half of last night. I saw that it didn't cause any damage to your conscience at all. It even seemed to be very beneficial to you, so I didn't chase it out. What? Xiaomu lowered her head and looked at herself in confusion. There was actually an extra ball in her conscience? And it went in the middle of the night. Why didn't she notice it at all? Wait. Arbor's little face instantly darkened. When the golden talisman jade tome forcefully entered her conscience, didn't it open a small paragraph of explanation? Something about being able to stabilize the consciousness, automatically activate the power to protect the soul, and so on. If she didn't understand, then to put it simply, it should be able to protect her conscience. That was how the child understood it. But now, an unknown object had entered her conscience in the middle of the night. Why didn't the golden talisman jade tome warn her? Why didn't the golden talisman jade tome take precautions? Why didn't the golden talisman jade tome chase it away? This meant that it was just bragging before. Other than teaching her how to draw talismans, what else could it do? If you want to draw talismans, then draw talismans. Why are you blindly bragging about something so profound? Are you bullying me for being uncultured? The child chuckled and returned to the room in a bad mood. She sat down on a chair. After condensing a strand of mystic conscience from mystic energy and seeping into her conscience, Xiaomu's eyes still saw that empty conscience. Her apparition was sprawled out on her back on the ground that was crisscrossed with ravines. Her lazy appearance made the little fellow want to drag her out and give her a good beating. 12 jade slips floated quietly in midair. Sure enough, There was a ball of red mist beside the jade slip. Moreover, there was a circle around it that wrapped around quite a few milky white mystic senses. To be honest, her previous mystic conscious was pitifully meager, but ever since she advanced to become a level 7 mystic cultivator, her mystic conscious was definitely stronger than before. However, he didn't know what the red mist was for. The red mist seemed to sense that she was looking at it. It suddenly floated up and swallowed the outer layer of mystic sense into the mist ball. Arbor was shocked and hurriedly cried out, little ball, is it eating my mystic sense? Hurry up and chase it out. What is this thing? Master, don't be nervous. Look carefully. Arbor calmed his little heart and looked again with rapt attention. He saw that the red mist had spat out the few strands of mystic consciousness that it had sucked in earlier. Compared to the previous few strands, there were clearly a few more strands of profound sense that were spat out. What is it? It actually knew how to nurture mystic consciousness. Master, you don't know? The sapling's voice was a bit strange. How would I know? You already said that it came in the middle of the night. I've never seen it before. Isn't it the lousy book that Master picked up, soaked in water, and roasted in fire? Chapter 303. Our dear Xiaomu was dumbstruck for a moment before regaining her senses. Lousy book? That lousy book had run into her conscious? No wonder she hadn't seen that lousy book even after walking 2 rounds around the room. Master, this should be an inherited secret technique. Like your golden talisman jade tome. It can already change its form at will, so it must have existed in this world for a long time. As for why it was placed in your sex treasury, I don't know. Qiuqiu paused for a moment before continuing. But based on my conjecture, this secret technique's original form was probably forged from the netherworld jade, which is why it can nourish your mystic conscious. Our dear Xiaomu's expression became increasingly sluggish. After a while, she finally found her weak voice. You mean this lousy book originally didn't look like that? Of course. Qiuqiu nodded. The netherworld jade is dark red and lusterless, warm to the touch, and shaped like scarlet jade. It's rare that the jade's aura can nourish mystic conscious, but the process is relatively slow. This secret technique was most likely carved out of a piece of netherworld jade. In reality, it should have been enveloped by that red mist, which is why it looks like this now. Then why did it turn into that tattered and stinking ghost from before? Our dear Xiaomu was stupefied. I don't know. Maybe it's a hobby. Look at the golden talisman jade tome. Doesn't it also like to turn into 12 jade slips? Master, the golden talisman jade tome you originally saw was a book entirely made of pure gold. That's made from the pinnacle material of refined gold jade, so it's definitely different from those mediocre and high-grade mystic technique manuals that can be found everywhere. Our dear Xiaomu was actually speechless. Hobby, who could erase someone else's hobby, right? This lousy book wasn't like that. But this inherited secret technique loved to turn into a lousy book. What could she do? She couldn't stop it. This fellow's original form was some netherworld jade. No wonder it was impervious to fire and water. Was it really good for a book to be so strange? She blinked. How do I make it turn back into a normal book? It was very difficult for her to read its contents with its red mist enveloping mode. Simple, Master. Actually, you just need to get it to remove the outer layer of red mist. The inherited secret technique is now in your conscious, so you can make it normal as you wish. Io. The little treant was hit by a fist-sized jade that flew out of the red mist and hit its head. It was immediately driven out of its conscious. Arbor. What an unreliable fellow. At the most crucial moment, he would drop the ball for her. She had to rely on herself for everything. However, in the next second, Darling Qiao's consciousness that had entered her conscious was also brought out. She sat at the table with a strange expression on her face. She looked down and saw that there was a piece of dark red jade in her hand. Oh my, this arrogant secret skill. Little Tree muttered and hurriedly said, Master, why don't you try injecting some mystic energy into it? Arbor nodded and glanced at the small tree. Take Daqing and Debao back to the paradise. The two of them were too noisy, and they were interfering with her ability to read the secret technique. Little Tree had a constipated look on his face. Under the calm gaze of Arbor, he dragged Little Chick and the golem back, feeling aggrieved. Arbor placed the jade on the table and touched it with his tentacles. A thick wave of mystic energy flowed into the jade. In an instant, a line of words appeared on the jade. Spirit Division Record. The fated one will obtain it. This cultivation technique is divided into two parts, the soul chapter and the technique chapter. Before practicing this cultivation technique, you must first form a branch, otherwise you cannot practice it. First update, third update at night. These 2 days, the author has been busy with mundane matters, so he can't cultivate right during the day. See you later. Chapter 304. Branch Meridians? Xiaomu reflexively looked inside herself and saw a fork in her mystic meridians before pensively retracting her gaze. Could it be that this hair-thin branch that was different from the mystic meridians was the branch meridians mentioned in the book? The reason the book chased after her relentlessly was because it sensed the branch meridians in her body, what she thought was most likely close to the truth. This inherited secret technique already knew how to hide itself, so it might not be unable to sense her branch meridians. Arbor reached out and brushed the crimson jade on the table. As her mind moved, a faint red light flitted across the jade and leapt into her eyes. Lines of small vertical characters suspended in midair and rapidly trembled as they appeared. How to forge and strengthen the branch meridians in the body. How to control the apparition of profound consciousness. Arbor's gaze flitted past the small characters at an extremely fast speed. The more she read, the more surprised her expression became. This inherited secret skill called the Spirit Division Record was really a little unexpected. After reading it, Arbor suddenly realized that the apparition of profound consciousness also needed the support of the main body to control and train it. Her apparition of profound consciousness was lazy every day. It was also because she didn't control it and allowed it to laze around all day. Don't blame her for not knowing the reason. Although she cultivated an apparition of profound consciousness in her previous life, it took her almost 10 years of effort. Moreover, it was under the condition of her body being crippled, but her mind not being crippled. It could even be said that compared to people of the same generation, she could be considered quite outstanding. Because some people may not be able to cultivate an apparition of profound consciousness even when they die. At that time, her environment was completely different from now. Under that harsh and vile environment, her heart was always filled with layers of murderous intent. She wanted to escape the treatment of a small animal. She wanted to escape the shackles of fate. She had always been constantly striving for it, living with hope amidst despair. Therefore, the state of her apparition of profound consciousness at that time was completely different from the comfortable state she was in now. Her apparition of profound consciousness, under the urging of her instincts, was desperately striving to become strong in her conscious. And now, she was comfortable. Even if she was filled with anxiety about the future, in reality, her days were still much more comfortable than in her previous life. The abundance of resources allowed her to be filled with absolute confidence and composure in the face of a world filled with zombies. The appearance of her sect allowed her to obtain a living environment that was completely different from her previous life. Arbor took a deep breath and closed his eyes, going through all the floating words in his mind. The first basic level of the Spirit Division Record's Soul Chapter was to train the first branch meridian and condense all the profound energy in the branch meridian into profound sense, using it to skillfully control one's own manifestation of profound sense. As for the skills section, the content was also very extensive. There were descriptions of all kinds of weapons in the book. Naturally, Arbor couldn't brag until he was fat. He read through all the skill books in one day. So she chose a type of archery profound skill. Because zombies were too ugly, she didn't want to be entangled with them in close combat, so it was better to shoot them from afar. He still remembered that day when the Crown Prince had attached his mystic energy to an ordinary bow and arrow, and killed a level 3 mutated zombie in one shot. This kind of usage of mystic energy and control of the bow and arrow had probably reached the point of perfection. After all, the slightest difference could lead to a huge loss. An ordinary bow and arrow couldn't be compared to a profound weapon which could allow one to attach mystic energy to it. Once there was a slight error, the ordinary bow and arrow would be the first to be unable to withstand the crown prince's surrounding mystic energy, and would be destroyed. Chapter 305. Although she didn't want to admit it, that guy was truly super strong. Arbor pursed her lips and brushed the spirit division record on the table, storing it into her conscious. Why the hell did she think of the crown prince for no reason? It must be because she was too idle recently, and had to seize the time to enter closed-door cultivation. She naturally couldn't completely grasp the spirit division record with such little effort. Thankfully, this inherited secret technique was stored in her conscious, so she could read it at any time. Arbor lowered her eyes and entered inner sight. She tried her best to condense the mystic energy in her branch meridian into mystic conscious, but this process was extremely slow and painful. Compared to the first branch meridian that was as thin as a strand of hair, the mystic energy in her main meridian was extremely abundant. If she wasn't careful, she would misuse it and condense the mystic energy in her main meridian into mystic conscious. The little fellow practiced until nearly 10 o'clock in the evening, but she still hadn't successfully condensed the mystic energy in her branch meridian. She knew that she couldn't be too hasty. The more hasty she was, the worse it would be, so she opened her eyes. She saw Morong-sun sitting across the table with her chin propped up on her hand. Morong-sun was looking at her with a smile under the flickering candlelight. Little fellow, master doesn't know whether to be gratified or heartbroken that you're so hard-working. Morong-sun sighed softly and stood up to support her hand. Let's go, my disciple. Master will take you to First Peak for a stroll. At your age, ordinary children are all playful. Master doesn't know what to say about you being so serious and hardworking. Morong-sun nonchalantly picked up the child and swayed out the door with her in her arms. The entire snowy peak was shrouded in darkness, and the stars in the sky reflected the whiteness of the snow. Arbor felt that the scenery on First Peak was extremely beautiful. The pavilions and terraces were hidden under the thick white snow, occasionally revealing a bit of sharp eaves. The winding corridors were smooth, and the winding paths were deep and serene. The second and third peaks opposite First Peak were lofty and majestic, with sharp cliffs and handsome peaks. Under the night sky, the entire sect was like an unfurled painting, peaceful, tranquil, and filled with poetry. The child's gaze landed in the distance, and she was nearly mesmerized. She had never known that there was such a peaceful place in this chaotic world. Morong-sun carried the child to the summit platform. The scenery here was even more delightful, and she felt like she had melded into the embrace of the snowy peak. Stars swayed in front of her eyes, and below her was a bottomless cliff with a deep ravine. Arbor clenched his small fists and said, Master, can I go to the mystical treasured land to practice from tomorrow onwards? Morong-sun couldn't help but be dumbfounded. It was a moment before she said, Child, if a bowstring is stretched too tight, it will snap. People are similar. You're still young, so you don't have to push yourself so hard. You have to work hard. The little stoic was expressionless as she said solemnly, If you don't work hard, how will you protect Master in the future? Morong-sun was dumbstruck for a moment before bursting into laughter. Io, Master's heart is about to melt because of you, little stoic. Good. My disciple is so hardworking. Of course, Master will fully support her. Morong-sun lowered her head to glance at the child with a grin and pointed at the bottomless abyss below the summit platform. Little fellow, go down from here. It's the mystical treasured land I told you about before. Morong-sun pinched the child's face. This is our holy water sect's secret land. Jump down. Are you scared? Arbor shook his head. What could you expect a little stoic who could calmly face death to be scared of? Morong-sun leaped up with the child in her arms. Then Master will bring you down right now. Chapter 306. The speed of their descent was extremely fast, and Arbor could barely open her eyes from the gust of wind that buffeted her. She forced her eyes open to take a look, and saw that the bottom of the snowy peak was covered in sharp icicles. Everything within several miles was covered in sharp icicles. If she accidentally fell on them, there was an 80% chance that she would become an ornament strung up on the icicles. Morong Sun's landing was extremely precise and landed on a small oval-shaped platform. This was the only place that was surrounded by icicles. Arbor could finally open her eyes and look around before involuntarily exclaiming in surprise. In reality, the master and disciple did not land at the bottom of the snowy peak at all, because the bottom of the peak was also covered in icicles. If they fell, they would still die. However, this small platform that emerged horizontally from the icicles extended from the side of the snowy peak. When they walked closer, they could clearly see that a 2-person tall hole had been dug into the snowy mountain wall. It looked like it was naturally formed. This place enshrines the holy water. It will be extremely cold inside, so you must pay attention to using your mystic energy to protect your body. Don't let the cold air invade your body. It's not good for our mystic meridians. Morong Sun reminded her before holding the child's hand and pulling her into this natural cave. Indeed, the moment they took their first step inside, they felt an eerie chill assaulting their faces. Arbor reflexively opened the eggshell and covered her body with it. Morong Sun immediately laughed out loud when she saw it. Disciple, your eggshell is amazing. It can resist the cold, heat, wind, and rain. TSK, this is a very powerful defensive mystic weapon. It can even block a powerful attack from a level 12 mystic cultivator. Morong Sun deeply suspected that she had taken in a nouveau riche child as her disciple. The little fellow grumpily followed Morong Sun with a dark face. Master, no one will think you're mute if you don't speak right now. There are 3 levels below this mystical treasured land. Morong Sun explained with a smile. The lowest level enshrines the holy water and is the coldest. Before you become a great level 10 mystic cultivator, don't rashly step inside. I'm afraid the cold air will harm your mystic meridians. You can cultivate on the first level for now. However, the cold air here is very dense, so you can't cultivate for more than 10 days at a time. Remember what Master said. Otherwise, when things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. If the foundation of the profound veins is damaged, it will not be good. Arbor looked at the icicles hanging upside down on the walls. The spikes on the ground should have been smoothed out by the people of his sect. When he stepped on them, it didn't affect his feet. He just felt a chill. Fortunately, she had a defensive profound artifact on her, and the profound energy here was extremely dense. Cultivating in seclusion here would definitely yield twice the results with half the effort. Arbor nodded. Morong Sun glanced at her worriedly. Do you want Master to stay here with you? No need. Arbor shook his head. Master, just come and pick me up in 10 days. Morong Sun helplessly glanced at the child and nodded. All right then. You must be careful here by yourself. If you need anything, use the messaging talisman to call Master. All right. From the second day onwards, everyone in the sect knew that their youngest junior sister had gone to the mystical treasured land to cultivate diligently. Since little junior sister was already so hardworking, how could they, as her senior sisters, fall behind? From then on, the entire Holy Water sect entered a state of making the best use of their time to cultivate. In the beginning, Arbor was brought out by Morong Sun every 10 days. 3 months later, she only came out every month. During this time, she really learned how to draw talisman matrices through the Golden Talisman Jade Tome. The first talisman matrix she drew was the Mystic Energy Gathering Talisman Matrix. Chapter 307. The Mystic Energy Gathering Talisman Matrix required 60 Mystic Energy Gathering Talismans. Right now, she only had 120 blank talismans left. As a result, she used up half of the blank talismans to draw 60 Mystic Energy Gathering Talismans. This was the simplest beginner-level talisman matrix, but it took her about 2 days in Arbor to set it up. She placed the Mystic Energy Gathering Talisman Matrix on the first floor of the Mystic Treasured Land. This way, every senior sister who came to the Mystic Treasured Land to cultivate could experience a flying surge of mystic energy. The beginner-level Mystic Energy Gathering Talisman Matrix gathered all of the rich mystic energy in this place into the matrix. In the future, Everyone's cultivation speed would be 1 to 2 times faster if they cultivated inside the matrix compared to the outside world. Our dear Qiaomu wholeheartedly immersed herself in arduous cultivation. Aside from closed-door cultivation, she consulted her master about martial arts. Every time Qiaomu came out of the mystic treasured land, she would be carried back by Murong Sun, and the master and disciples would joyfully enjoy a sumptuous feast. Afterwards, Murong Sun would keep Qiaomu by her side for a few days to test her and guide her attentively. Qiaomu's cultivation increased by leaps and bounds with each passing day, stimulating all of the senior sisters in the sect to work harder. Only the heavens knew how large the shadow in the senior sisters' hearts was when they had such a terrifyingly talented cultivation maniac by their side. They felt like they couldn't stop. If they stopped for even a moment, they would be left behind by little junior sister, who was running ahead of them. The gap couldn't be too wide, right? Otherwise, where would the senior sisters put their faces? Over the years, the little fellow's figure grew quite a bit. Now that darling Qiao had reached the age of a golden hairpin, she didn't allow anyone to carry her anymore. Because of this, Murong Sun was both regretful and gratified. Her heart as a teacher was melancholy for a very, very long time. The sect master's peak was filled with verdant green bamboos. In the past few years, the sect's disciples frequently went out on missions, so even if they weren't very wealthy, they had no problems with basic food and clothing. Sky Peak even accumulated quite a bit of surplus food. The sect master's days were also quite good. She had just renovated a row of bamboo buildings 2 days ago. At this moment, the sect master was leaning on her brocade couch, waving the cattail leaf fan in her hand, fanning herself from time to time while calling out, "Yo-yo, yo-yo, hey." The disciple guarding the door hurriedly ran in and hurriedly said, Sect Master, Senior Uncle Murong is here. Please speak louder." "Ah, hurry up." The sect master hurriedly lay down and asked the little disciple to carry the bedding to her body. She kept moaning and groaning. Murong Sun's indifferent voice came from outside the door. The little disciple said worriedly, "Peak Master, Sect Master has been sick for several days. He doesn't have any appetite for food or drink. He looks like he has lost a lot of weight." Murong Sun. "Master, your disciple is here." Murong Sun stepped through the door, and her lips involuntarily twitched when she saw the dying sect master being pressed down on the bed by 2 sheets. "Asun." The sect master sighed. Murong Sun hummed in acknowledgement, and went to the table to pour herself a cup of tea. She calmly looked at her childlike master. "I'm afraid Master really won't make it this time," the sect master stuttered. She raised her trembling hand, and took out a token from her chest. "From today onwards, you are the 17th generation sect master of my holy water sect. Master, the date for the 3 sects competition has been set." Murong Sun looked at the sect master with a grin. "Did you know? The 5 factions initiated a provocation this time, and have already sent out a competition invitation. They plan to join the 3 sects competition and compete with us." Chapter 308. When the sect master heard this, she hastily lifted the bedding and jumped up. "What? The 5 factions sent out a competition invitation? Where's the invitation? Where is it?" the sect master asked in displeasure. "I didn't receive it, so I won't compete with them." Murong Sun. "The other 2 factions have already received the 5 factions competition invitation." Murong Sun said, "Based on the time, the 5 factions representatives should be coming to the foot of our great snow mountain for the competition invitation in the next 2 days. Sect Master, you just have to remember to get up and accept it." The sect master's outstretched hand suddenly froze. She looked down at herself and saw that she was wearing a white undergarment and hopping barefoot on the ground. Ah! How did she forget to pretend to be sick in her excitement? When she looked up again, Murong Sun threw her aback in capital letters. It angered her so much that she slapped the table and cursed, "Wicked disciple!" On First Peak's summit platform, a figure in light-colored clothes stood upright like a jade sculpture, and looked up at the distant horizon. A wisp of drifting cloud illuminated the snowy peak in a fragrant white. Shriek. A cyan dot in the distance gradually stretched into a long cyan shadow and swiftly flew over. As it got closer, the beautiful cyan wings folded away, and a fluffy little chick flapped its wings and jumped onto the little girl's shoulder. It cooed twice and rubbed itself against the little girl's face. The little fellow turned her frosty face away, and expressionlessly refused to let the chick rub itself against her. Caw. The little chick flapped its wings. Was little master in a bad mood? Arbor did not look at it. Her gaze was fixed in a certain direction for a long time, and her eyes that were as dark as deep pools dangerously narrowed bit by bit. 3 crow gold arrows were already in place on the pure black crow repeating crossbow in her hand. She raised her arm and aimed the crow repeating crossbow at a certain direction in the sky. Miss Chiao's voice was bone-chilling and emotionless, as if it had been fished out of ice and snow. Who dares to trespass on holy water sect's first peak without notifying us? Get down here immediately, Miss Chiao icily said. Otherwise, I'll shoot you to death immediately. Bear the consequences. In the distant horizon, a green-headed eagle was advancing at full speed toward first peak. The 3 people led by Quan Daodong were standing on the eagle's back in high spirits, preparing to enjoy the admiration of the holy water sect's female disciples. Suddenly, a cold voice interrupted the trio's unrealistic fantasy. Quan Daodong immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. He stood on the green-headed eagle's back and shouted loudly, "Myriad Faction's eldest disciple, Quan Daodong, has come to the Holy Water Sect on behalf of the 5 factions under my master's orders to submit a competition invitation." This fellow thought that by saying this, the other party would definitely give face to the 5 sections. However, if you don't get down here within 3 breaths, die. An icy cold, machine-like voice instantly rang out. It was neither loud nor soft, neither light nor heavy, but it alarmed the entire holy water sect's first peak. "Eldest senior brother, we should go down quickly." Among the 2 young disciples standing behind Quan Daodong, one of the female disciples said in a trembling voice. Quan Daodong was also a little flustered. He wasn't sure if the girl with the icy voice would really disregard the reputation of the 5 gates and attack him. He didn't dare to take this risk. Compared to his life, his own life was still more important. Quan Daodong didn't care about acting mighty anymore, and quickly pressed the green-headed eagle down. Less than a second after the green-headed eagle landed, Su Shanshan and the other female disciples, who had heard the news, swiftly rushed over. At the same time, the crow gold arrow in Arbor's hand was released with a whoosh and flew toward the bloodless Quan Daodong. Chapter 309. Quan Daodong promptly unsheathed the long saber at his waist, and used it to block the rapidly approaching black gold arrow. After a crisp ding sound, the profound energy that exploded from the collision of the 2 weapons sent Quan Daodong flying backwards on the spot. Quan Daodong's feet dragged on the ground, and due to inertia he kept retreating backward. His complexion changed from pale to astonishment, and then to ashen from shock. On the summit platform, a little girl dressed in a plain robe as cold as an icy pond suddenly flew down. Her toes lightly tapped on the ground, and she slowly drifted forward a few steps. When she stood in front of Quan Daodong and the other 2, they were shocked to realize that the little girl in front of them was only 12 or 13 years old, but she was the reincarnation of a celestial being with an icy disposition. A pair of eyes that resembled ice and snow pearls emotionlessly stared at them. They could only see a desolate coldness in her eyes that mercilessly spread. Quan Daodong examined himself. He was already a level 8 mystic cultivator, and could be considered one of the best of the younger generation in the sect. But now he couldn't even withstand a single attack from a nameless girl from the Holy Water Sect. When did the younger generation of the Holy Water Sect become so valiant? This information was truly too overwhelming. Quan Daodong couldn't conceal the shock in his eyes, and he forcefully swallowed the blood that was about to spurt out. He desperately suppressed the mystic energy turbulence in his body to avoid embarrassing himself in front of the Holy Water Sect. Swish! The black gold arrow, which was slightly deflected by the collision, spun in a small circle before shooting towards Quan Daodong at an extremely fast speed. What? Quan Daodong's small eyes widened slightly. At this moment, although he was still able to stand firm, It was impossible for him to take another arrow in his current weak state. At the critical moment, he kicked the green-headed eagle beside him over, and used it to block in front of him. Gee! A light sound was heard. A pitch-black arrow pierced through one of the green-headed eagle's wings, eliciting a mournful wail. You guys are too. Quan Daodong opened his mouth, but how could he hold back the blood he was suppressing with all his might? He spat it out. The young man and woman behind Quan Daodong hastily walked up. The woman's face was flushed red as she reprimanded angrily. Is this how the Holy Water sect receives the disciples of the 5 factions? What you're doing is too overbearing. Anyone who doesn't pay respects to the mountain gate and doesn't go through the normal procedures and trespasses will be killed, Su Shanshan said coldly. It's you who didn't follow the rules. Go back to where you came from. The young man hurriedly said, Misunderstanding, misunderstanding, misunderstanding. We are disciples of the Myriad faction. We are here on Master's orders as representatives of the 5 factions to deliver the competition invitation to the Holy Water sect. The man scrambled forward and handed a gilded invitation to Su Shanshan, who had a cold expression on her face. Su Shanshan threw the invitation card at the young man's face. Then you've come to the wrong place. You have to pay a visit to the sect leader's peak. This is the first peak. Scram. Shueshao crossed her arms and stood lazily behind Su Shanshan. Hearing this, she smiled faintly. The man's face hurt from the slap, and he looked like he was about to cry. When his senior brothers from the sect found out that he and eldest senior brother were coming to pay a visit to the Holy Water sect, they were secretly envious. They said that the Holy Water sect had a group of noble and elegant goddesses. When they made a flashy entrance, they would definitely be surrounded and worshipped by the goddesses. They really should also come and experience the feeling of being slapped in the face. Chapter 310. Quan Daodong gritted his teeth and stooped down to pick up the invitation that had been flung to the ground while enduring the humiliation. His gaze shifted to Su Shanshan's side, and he cupped his hands at the expressionless young girl. May I know this little senior sister's name? I've never seen you before. Quan Daodong really wanted to confirm Arbor's identity, so that he could immediately report to his master when he returned. Even as a level 8 mystic cultivator, he couldn't withstand a single blow from the little girl. It could be imagined that within the 5 factions, it would be difficult for this girl to find a match. Unexpectedly, the little girl only glanced at him coldly, then turned around and left without saying anything. Quan Daodong felt that he had been deeply insulted. This girl was completely looking down on him. Her meaning was, you mortals aren't worthy of knowing my name, right? How could he have known that Miss Chiao just couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on him? What could a little stoic, who had always been taciturn in front of strangers, say to him? Wasn't this forcing her against her will? Quan Daodong wanted to head to the sect master's peak, but he discovered that his green-headed eagle had collapsed in a pool of blood, and was completely unable to crawl. He reluctantly picked up the green-headed eagle, and held his breath as he hurried to the sect master's peak with his junior brother and sister. Miss Chiao's section break, Central Palace's North Garden, Brocade Pavilion. Queen Zhao was smiling as she looked at the 3 young ladies sitting in front of her. Each of them looked to be around 15 or 16 years old, and looked extremely dignified and virtuous. The queen was currently chatting with the 3 young ladies when her personal elderly nanny quickly walked over and curtsied outside the Brocade Pavilion. Huaxian, is His Highness still handling government affairs in the southern study? The elderly nanny quickly shook her head. This servant only found out after going to the Eastern Palace that His Highness was invited by the 2 young sirs of the Qin estate early in the morning. So it's that Qin family from the Elixir Patrician family. Queen Zhao nodded pensively. Didn't this child not have much contact with the 2 young sirs of the Qin estate before? Why was he now? I heard from Xiao 11Z that the Qin estate sent people to invite him several times, but His Highness rarely responded, the elderly nanny said softly. Queen Zhao knitted her brows. She didn't know if it was her misperception, but she felt that this child was intentionally avoiding her. It had been like this several times. Every time she invited a young lady from a minister's family into the palace, the crown prince would always leave the palace early. Was it easy being a mother? His son was already 18 years old, but he didn't even have a close friend by his side. It really made people feel anxious just looking at him. It's fine if you don't want to take a concubine, but you can at least have 2 more people by your side. They can also be considerate to you and serve you well. Consort Cheng's family's great king's son, Mo Jiao, had taken in dozens to hundreds of secondary concubines, and had given birth to more than one son. Whenever Queen Zhao thought of those sour words that Consort Cheng had said, she felt extremely stifled. Looking at the 3 dignified and beautiful ladies in front of her, Queen Zhao suddenly lost interest in talking. She waved her hand and had the 3 ladies withdraw. What's the point of being so passionate about it? However, her son didn't cooperate at all. Queen Zhao angrily wiped her chest with an embroidered handkerchief. Go to the Qin estate and see what His Highness is doing. Your Highness, Sephora Flower Palace's Xiao Enzi requests an audience. Head Palace maid Hexiang quickly stepped forward to report. Queen Zhao frowned slightly, unable to restrain the displeasure in her heart. What does she want now? Does she think that she can poke the heavens just because she's pregnant? Tell him that this consort is tired. Your Highness, Xiao Enzi has come to ask for medicine on Consort Zheng's orders. Chapter 311. A harsh glint flashed through Queen Zhao's eyes. Someone drag out that dog slave who's making a fuss and flog him to death. Yes. The head palace maid Hexiang immediately bent her knees and accepted the order. She then walked over with a row of nannies with round waists and thick arms. With one hand on the left and the other on the right, they picked up the thin and weak eunuch and walked out of the garden. Xiao Enzi immediately trembled, his teeth chattering as he continued to shout, This servant is here on Consort Zheng's orders. Your Highness, this servant is here on Consort Zheng's orders. Slap him. Queen Zhao angrily rebuked, interrupting Xiao Enzi's words. She slammed her hand heavily on the table. A servant girl with a stern face and a ferule immediately walked out from behind Hexiang. Xiao Enzi, who was being held down by 2 nannies, quickly let out a blood-curdling scream. The great king has arrived. The consort Zheng has arrived. The great king, Your Highness, save me, Your Highness. Your Highness, Xiao Enzi is only here on Your Highness's orders to ask for medicine. Who would have thought that the queen would beat Xiao Enzi without distinguishing between right and wrong? Xiao Enzi was held down by 2 nannies and continuously struggled to shout. At this time, his cheeks were already red and swollen from the ferule. Whenever he made a sound, blood would continuously flow from the corners of his mouth. Your Highness, what are you doing? The great king of Mo Kingdom, Mo Lei, walked over with the pot-bellied consort Zheng. The great king was dressed in a household brocade robe. He was about 50 years old, and his eyes were a bit listless. His face carried a trace of age and exhaustion. On the other hand, consort Zheng, who was beside the great king, was in her 20s. She was as beautiful and delicate as a flower. At this time, consort Zheng's figure was seductively pressed against the great king's side. She held his arm and gently stroked her slightly bulging belly with one hand as she looked provocatively at Queen Zhao. Great king, tell big sis queen to stop. Consort Zheng rubbed herself against the great king's arm and exclaimed, Xiao Enzi is about to be beaten to death by big sister. Great king, a country has its laws, and a family has its rules. Consort Zheng allowed this servant to trespass into the palace, so this servant should be punished. As for consort Zheng, on account of the fact that she is pregnant with the great king's dragon child, this consort will spare her for the time being. Consort Zheng was so angry that her nose was about to become crooked. She glared at Queen Zhao fiercely. She then turned around and hooked her arms around the great king of Mo Kingdom like a little bird. The weak Qian cried, Great king, sister is too much of a bully. Hurry up and tell her. Mo Lei's expression was a little awkward. A queen? Why do you have to be angry with Gui Fei? Gui Fei is still young and doesn't know any better. Just give in to her a little. Men. Queen Zhao's breath was stuck in her chest, and she almost fainted from anger. How many times had the great king complained that she was old? No woman could tolerate this kind of words. Whoosh! An arrow suddenly shot into Xiao Enzi's throat. Before the little eunuch could hide his triumphant expression, He was shocked to find thick blood flowing out of his neck. His whole body fell back and heavily fell to the ground. A group of imperial guards nervously surrounded them. The leader, He Tian, held a bow in one hand and waved the other as he shouted, "Protect the great king! Be careful of the corpse puppet's pounce." The great king's hand that was holding Consort Zheng couldn't help but tremble. Consort Zheng covered her small mouth in shock and couldn't help but cry out. The great king's heart trembled whenever he heard the words corpse puppet. His Highness the Crown Prince has arrived. Following the announcement, a slender, jade-white figure walked over with large strides. Chapter 312. Royal Father, Royal Mother, are you all right? The Crown Prince walked over quickly. He was dressed in plain clothes and had his hair tied up with a jade crown. His face was handsome, and his bearing was unparalleled in the world. There was a faint smile on his lips. Compared to a few years ago, the Crown Prince had become more mature and steady. His phoenix eyes were calm, hiding all the sharpness in their depths. The old great king of the Mo kingdom turned to look at his son with a slightly rich expression. Consort Zheng felt like her mouth was stuffed with a duck egg. All her words were stuck in her throat. Royal Mother, your son came late and frightened you. The Crown Prince reached out to support the teary-eyed Queen Zhao and apologized with a guilty expression. Queen Zhao was a bit confused, but she subconsciously reached out to stop the Crown Prince from bowing and apologizing. The Crown Prince turned around and pretended to reprimand He Tian. Hurry and clean up this corpse puppet's body. Remember to burn it and don't let it counterattack and hurt anyone else. Yes, Your Highness. He Tian waved his hand with a serious expression and led a group of imperial guards forward. They lifted Shaoanzi's body and left. Wait. Consort Zheng watched in shock as Shaoanzi was carried away. She turned around and tugged at the Great King's sleeve with unusual resentment. Great King, look at the Crown Prince. How could Shaoanzi be a corpse puppet? The Crown Prince was simply using this as a pretext to make a fuss. He was pointing at a deer as a horse to target her. Damn it. Shaoanzi could normally help her deal with many people and handle many filthy matters. With his inexplicable death, she lost a capable assistant. Noble Consort Zheng truly went for wool and came home shorn. She was so infuriated that her heart and lungs ached. The old great king patted his beloved concubine's arm and comforted. Don't be scared, don't be scared. The Crown Prince already got rid of the corpse puppet. Consort Zheng was so angry that she fell backwards. He already said that Shaoanzi wasn't a corpse puppet. Great King. Consort Zheng tugged at the great king's sleeve. Mo stole a glance at the queen and coughed lightly. Queen, the Zhuben tribe offered a bottle of shark pearl powder as a tribute last time. I'll give it to you as a reward. That now. Before the great king could finish his words, he secretly glanced at the queen's face, which was getting worse and worse. Ever since noble Consort Zheng became pregnant, she hasn't been able to eat or sleep well, and her complexion is wan and sallow. This humble one thinks that that bottle of shark pearl powder should be of some use to her. The old king braced himself and didn't finish speaking. She was interrupted by the Crown Prince with a chuckle. Shark pearl powder? Mother gave it to me long ago. Consort Zheng's eyes were filled with hope as she looked at the Crown Prince with a flushed face. Her little hand kept tugging at the great king's sleeve. However, the great king felt that his son's gaze was strange. He braced himself and said, Then Grand Crown Prince, this bottle. Last time you climbed a tree and accidentally fell down and hurt his butt. Father, you know about this, right? I know. The great king coughed. Now that Yor was inexplicably brought up, he felt that the Crown Prince wouldn't say anything good. The great king and the noble consort looked at each other in dismay. This bottle of sharp pearl powder was later used to wipe Yor's butt. The face of the old nanny beside the queen trembled slightly, but she forced herself to hold back her laughter and kept a straight face. Consort Zheng's pretty face instantly turned green. The great king also looked at his son with a dumbfounded expression. For a moment he was actually at a loss for words. Consort Zheng wanted to use the precious shark pearl powder to wipe her face, but Yue used it to wipe his butt. What could the great king say? Consort Zheng was so angry that she cried. She turned around and left quickly. However, His Highness the Crown Prince said to the great king with a serious expression, "Father, did I say anything wrong? Oh right, you also said that the shark pearl powder should be fake and useless." The great king was speechless. What should I do if I feel stifled? Chapter 313. Looking at the Crown Prince's serious face, the great king was completely speechless. In the end, he could only leave with a flick of his sleeves. Queen Zhao stood next to the Crown Prince and watched the great king leave with a deep gaze. She didn't look away for a long time. "Mother." Emolian frowned. "If Young he is too much of an eyesore, just find an excuse to get rid of her. Why bother waiting for someone else?" "Crown Prince, don't interfere in this matter." Queen Zhao hurriedly pulled her son's hand and said softly, "A mere consort Zheng is naturally insignificant. Moreover, the entire Zheng family is only a small aristocratic family that has only been in the capital for less than 20 years. It's just that it's said that the main family of the Zheng family is in Shuntian Prefecture." The queen's voice slowly trailed off as she whispered a few words to her son. "Heh, Shuntian Prefecture again." A trace of impatience flitted through the Crown Prince's eyes. Shuntian Prefecture's hands seemed to have stretched too far. Did they really think that no one in this world could deal with them? On the other side, after the great king came out of the palace, he hurriedly chased after his beloved concubine. Consort Zheng walked and stopped in front. She was very angry that the old great king didn't chase after her to coax her. She had actually been waiting for a while on the path in the imperial garden. Her hands twisted the handkerchief at her fingertips as she continuously twisted her fingers. At this moment, she saw the corner of the great king's clothes flash past. She hurriedly turned her head and deliberately stomped heavily on the stone tiles to walk forward. The old great king hurriedly chased after her, calling out "beloved concubine," as he pulled Consort Zheng into his arms. "Great king, look at the Crown Prince." The words he said. "He doesn't take me seriously at all." Consort Zheng cried as she threw herself into the great king's arms. She stomped her feet and said, "Last time, the Crown Prince directly called this consort Jung he in front of this consort. This consort is no longer the dancer from back then. The Crown Prince is clearly looking down on me." The old great king hurriedly hugged Consort Zheng and comforted her. "Beloved consort, we will properly talk to him tomorrow." "What tomorrow?" Noble Consort Zheng angrily flung away the old king's hand and angrily said without thinking, "This concubine heard that the queen gave birth at 5 Lakes Villa back then. There were rumors that the Crown Prince was not the queen's son. Look at him. Which part of him resembles the great king? Moreover, the Crown Prince's temperament is completely unlike the great king or the queen." "Shut up." The great king suddenly pushed Consort Zheng away and glared at her angrily. "Great king, I'm doing this for your sake. I don't want to see the great king being kept in the dark." Consort Zheng's tears flowed down her cheeks, making her look very beautiful. However, the king turned hostile at the drop of a hat, and a slap landed on noble Consort Zheng's fair and tender face. Noble Consort Zheng cried out in alarm as her entire body fell backwards. Her personal maidservants hurriedly rushed over and cushioned her with their bodies as cushions. Noble Consort Zheng didn't have much of an impact when she fell into the crowd, but it scared her so much that her face turned ghastly pale. She looked at the old king, who was unable to restrain his fury, in complete bewilderment. Ever since she followed the great king, she had never seen the great king get angry at her. At the same time that she felt stifled in her heart, noble Consort Zheng's entire body trembled in fright. "The Crown Prince is the heir to the throne that we personally appointed. He is our biological son. No one can slander him." The old great king waved his hand furiously and stared at Consort Zheng, as if he wanted to eat her alive. "Speak, who was it that was gossiping in your ear? We're going to chop her up right now." Consort Zheng kicked an iron plate this time. She cried until her whole body shook and her eyes rolled back. She cried out repeatedly, great king, it was I who said the wrong thing, it was I who." Chapter 314. Someone send Consort Zheng back to Sephora Flower Palace. Stay in the palace for the next 3 days. and reflect on yourself. Remember what you should say and what you shouldn't say in the future." The great king waved his hand and ordered someone to send Consort Jing back, completely ignoring his beloved concubine's wailing. When the news reached the Eastern Palace's southern study, it was already close to evening. The crown prince was rather surprised by the scene in the imperial garden. The night pavilion's captain, Mei Yi, stood solemnly in front of the crown prince with his head lowered. There was no smile on his grave and stern face as he asked seriously, "Your Highness, should we deal with her?" The crown prince waved his hand and said, "Let her be." This wasn't the first or second time this kind of thing had been said. The one with the biggest reaction wasn't him, nor was it Imperial Mother. Instead, it was Imperial Father. Every time this kind of rumor reached the old king's ears, he would fly into a rage and insist on executing all those who spread the rumor in an earth-shattering manner. Since it would only end in failure in the end, Mo Lian naturally couldn't be bothered to deal with it. "How is Shizhou City these days?" "It's very peaceful," Mei Yi said calmly. "Ever since that wave of people was cleared out a year ago, no one has harassed the Qiao family anymore." The crown prince put down the teacup in his hand and curled his lips. "What other news is there?" Mei Yi's voice grew calmer. "The three-sect competition is officially set to be on the 14th of the 8th month. The 5 factions sent representatives to the 3 sects to personally send a competition invitation, intending to participate in this 3-sect competition." The crown prince's phoenix eyes immediately lit up and glowed faintly. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" This news was much more useful than any of the previous pieces of news. The great king plans to go to Xixia Valley to watch the competition. Mei Yi paused slightly before continuing. "It's the location of the 3-sect competition." Then Mei Yi said in a rather serious voice, "Before the great king leaves, he will probably leave all state affairs to your highness to handle as usual." The crown prince's expression was calm. Mei Yi couldn't see any hint of displeasure on the crown prince's peerlessly handsome face. However, he could sense the crown prince's terrifying emotions that were about to erupt. His highness must be feeling heartbroken. His highness must be thinking, "After all this time, it turns out that I'm a left-behind child." The crown prince patted Mei Yi's shoulder and said calmly, "Mei Yi, your subordinate is here." Mei Yi lowered his head. He wouldn't tell his highness that he was secretly laughing in his heart. "You said before that Hidden Flower will bring people to Yellow Mountain tomorrow to exterminate that generation of corpse puppets, right?" Okay. Tell Hidden Flower to come back. You go tomorrow." The crown princess stood up and slowly walked out of the study, leaving behind a stupefied student, Mei Yi, who was slowly pondering over her words. "Your Highness? Wasn't this a bit too much?" "Your Highness, this subordinate is from the Night Pavilion. Our main responsibility is to gather and transmit information. Can't you be more clear about the division of labor? Please don't scam me." The crown prince turned his head in surprise. "What did you just say?" "This prince feels that for someone like you who dares to stab a knife into this prince's heart, a small punishment like exile is too insignificant. Shouldn't I think of a better way to trap you?" "And nothing, Your Highness." Mei Yi instantly understood the hint in his highness's eyes. He immediately knelt on one knee and obediently accepted the order. "Yes, Your Highness. This subordinate will do it right away." Crown Prince Mo snickered as he watched his subordinate jump out of the window and flee for his life like a rabbit. There were still 2 months, right? In 2 months, he would be able to see his expressionless baby. Don't worry, when the time came, he would definitely trick his old father into staying at home to take care of things. How could something as lousy as Regent compare to seeing darling Qiao? Chapter 315. The Great Snow Mountain outside Five Moon City was originally deserted except for the Holy Water Sect's entrance. The Great Snow Mountain snowed all year round and was abnormally cold, so it was not suitable for people to live there. However, in recent years, there were villagers who continuously moved to the foot of the Great Snow Mountain and settled outside the Holy Water Sect's entrance. It was for no other reason than their safety near the Great Snow Mountain. There were basically no zombies at the foot of the Great Snow Mountain. It was rare to see one, so as long as they immediately reported it to the holy water sect, the sect would immediately send disciples down the mountain to eliminate all the dangers nearby. The world was hard and life was not easy. The commoners only wished for a peaceful life. In recent years, some of the animals and plants in the nearby suburbs had started to mutate. Only the vegetation and animals around the Great Snow Mountain were the same as before. Thus, no matter how cold the Great Snow Mountain was, after the news spread, many Chiu Kingdom citizens and residents of nearby tribes were willing to move out of the city and settle down at the foot of the Great Snow Mountain. After several years, a sizable village had formed at the foot of the Great Snow Mountain. The villagers named it Xianghe Village, representing the peace and prosperity they hoped for. Today, when it was close to midnight, the men and women who had gone out early in the morning to hunt snow chickens and other animals, dig up vegetation and mushrooms, and pick wild fruits all returned. Although the Great Snow Mountain was covered in deep snow all year round, there was still a lot of edible food. Such an abundance of wilderness resources made the villagers living here feel extremely blessed. At this time, dusk had fallen, and the people who had returned from a day's work all led their children home. On the main mountain path, 3 exhausted figures, 1 in front and 2 behind, left a long trail of footprints in the snow. The children looked at them curiously, and were immediately carried home by their parents. A little girl who was squatting outside the door playing with snow patted the snowball in her hand, and stood up. She blinked and suddenly pointed at the 3 people and asked crisply, "Mother, didn't those 3 people fly up the mountain on a big bird in the morning? Why are they walking down now?" MMPH. The little girl's mouth was covered by her mother, so the woman did not dare to cause trouble. She quickly carried the child inside and immediately closed the door. When the 3 people came, they had fiercely shown off their might at Xianghe Village. Quan Daodong specially ordered the green-headed eagle to circle the village several times, so that those ignorant villagers could admire them. Thus, many villagers recognized them now. To this old man. Exhausted, Quan Daodong walked up and wanted to say something. The old man, with a pale face, quickly slammed the wooden door in front of Quan Daodong's face. Every family shrank back into their homes and closed. No one dared to pay them any attention. Quan Daodong was so angry that his face turned pale. He wished he could explode on the spot and kill all these audacious villagers right here and now. However, he also knew that the nature of this was very serious. At that time, Myriad sect would inevitably become the target of public criticism. Not only would it be suppressed by the 3 sects, but it might even face the pursuit of all the righteous sects and people on Sikong planet. Feng Moon Mountain Sect. Star Star Mountain Sun Sun Moon Star A Day Snow Fong Sun Sex Heaven Snow Mountain Sex Snows. But now, looking at the hundreds of houses in the village with their doors tightly shut, Quan Daodong was really angry. Chapter 316. That D*MN Holy Water Sect. They were simply intolerable bullies. If it weren't for that icy little girl who shot through the wings of their green-headed eagle, how could the 3 of them be reduced to such a sorry and pitiful state? Quan Daodong couldn't help but shudder inwardly at the thought of that ruthless little girl. That pair of eyes was too cold, like the rippling waters of the Yellow Springs, without a trace of human life. When she looked at others, it was as if they were all corpses. Eldest senior brother. Will the green-headed eagle die if we leave it on the mountain? The female disciple from Myriad faction was about to cry. Quan Daodong viciously turned around and glared at her. What else can we do if we don't throw it away? Don't tell me you're going to carry it all the way down the mountain? An eagle without wings had already reached the end of its life. What else could he do other than throw it away? He was so vexed that he was about to die. If Master found out that they had killed one of their sex mounts on a trip, he didn't know how Master would punish them. Eldest senior brother, I'm cold. Let's rest for a night before leaving, the female disciple stammered. Now that they didn't have any mounts, they could only walk or see if they could borrow 2 horses from the villagers. Junior brother, who go knock on the door, Quan Daodong ordered angrily. He really didn't want to talk to this group of ignorant villagers. Each of them was more cowardly than a mouse. They were proper disciples of Myriad faction, and didn't eat people. That young disciple called junior brother, who hastily went up and knocked on a family's door. Uncle Auntie opened the door. We're disciples of myriad faction and proper mystic cultivators, not villains. It's too late, so we just want to stay the night. We just want a mouthful of hot soup to drink. After a while, that family didn't respond at all. Junior brother who shook his head and returned in disappointment. He said to the female disciple, Junior sister Jiang, go and try. Perhaps those villagers' hearts would soften if a girl came forward. Junior Marshall sister Jiang moved her feet and found another house. She gently knocked on the door and roughly said the same thing as Junior Marshall brother who, however, she still returned empty-handed. The three of them stood in the snow, feeling both cold and angry. They looked at each other. At this time, the sky was completely dark. Only a few stars flickered in the sky. I'm going to kill them. Quan Daodong fiercely pulled out the long saber at his waist. He took a few steps forward and was about to split open a door. Junior sister Jiang hastily pulled him back. She hugged her arms and shivered in the cold wind. Eldest senior brother. This place isn't far from the Holy Water Sect's mountain gate. If they really cause a ruckus and make the entire Holy Water Sect come out in full force, I definitely won't be their match. At that time, wouldn't we be even more unlucky? That's right, eldest senior brother. Junior sister Jiang is right. Junior brother who took a step forward and hurriedly nodded. It seems that the villagers here are not hospitable people. Why don't we leave? It's too cold near the snow mountain. I think we should leave as soon as possible. Right. As long as we leave the Great Snow Mountains range, it's still June outside. It definitely won't be as abnormally cold as here. Quan Daodong resentfully put away his long saber and coldly glanced in the direction of the Holy Water Sect's mountain gate. Let's go. After the three of them left silently with their tails between their legs, a lithe figure appeared where they left. She sent a message through the sect's messenger talisman. Myriad factions disciples have left. Chapter 317. Arbor had lived in this small courtyard for nearly 5 years. Winter passed and spring came. Spring left and summer arrived. Her plain clothes remained the same. However, the small courtyard grew more and more prosperous with each passing year. Green vines covered the corners of the walls. A small fence was built around the flower bed, and many flowers suitable for growing in the snow were planted. The small courtyard was filled with greenery. Over the years, Chiao Mu's small body grew bigger and bigger. She had to change clothes every few days. She had told her master that she didn't need so many clothes. Anyway, she cultivated day and night in the mystical treasured land. She didn't need so many clothes. But it still couldn't stop his master's strong desire to dress up his disciple. So much so that many 8 or 9-year-old clothes were left in the box without being worn. Because many times, she would cultivate in seclusion for 3 to 5 to 7 months. Her clothes had shrunk a lot before she came out of the mystical treasured land. She couldn't wear the clothes that her master had changed in advance. It was late at night in the small courtyard. Arbor sat alone in the side room. She held a roll of clean linen in her small hands and helped to bandage the green-headed eagle that was lying on the table. She sprinkled the fine powder on the green-headed eagle's wound. The guy's body that was lying on the table trembled slightly. Don't move. Arbor patted its head and wrapped the linen around the wound on its wing. Even if your master didn't dodge that arrow, it wouldn't have hit him. Arbor murmured softly. I just wanted to scare that guy. I didn't expect him to kick you out. Her small hand stroked the green-headed eagle's head. Arbor stood up and washed her hands in the basin. However, there were too many selfish people in this world. So, Arbor wasn't too surprised at that time. Dong dong dong. There was a hurried knock on the door. Arbor hurriedly picked up the green-headed eagle and stuffed it under the bed. She reached out and knocked on its head twice. Lie down and don't move. After hiding the green-headed eagle, Arbor stood up and waved his hand. Some fine powder from his fingertips cleared away all traces of blood in the room, leaving only a faint fragrance. The moment Miss Chiao opened the door, she saw the kitchen maid, Fat Sis, standing outside her door with a kitchen knife in hand, and second senior sister, Shui Xiao. Miss Chiao, when you went to the kitchen to get the stew, Did you see the green eagle that I placed in the corner? Fatsis asked in a loud voice. No, the little stoic replied expressionlessly. Over the years, everyone had completely gotten used to the little fellow's stoic face, so they nodded in response. The kitchen maid angrily turned around with the kitchen knife in her hand. Miss Shui, it seems that it escaped. He really didn't expect that the green eagle could still run away with its wings injured. I originally wanted to grind its fur and steam it to add more dishes for the girls. The corner of Arbor's mouth twitched. He looked away expressionlessly and lowered his head. That's right. Shui Xiao also said angrily. This little bastard dared to come to our sect and flaunt his prowess, so he should be cooked. He got off easy this time. If I catch him tomorrow, I'll definitely give him to Fat Sis to stew. Hey. Fat Sis raised her kitchen knife and left with Shui Xiao. Before she left, she told Arbor to hurry over and eat. Every time I come to Miss Chiao's court, I feel a sweet fragrance assailing my nostrils. It smells so good. Arbor closed the door and looked back at the green-headed eagle that had crawled out from under the bed. His gaze was cold and without any warmth. You can leave after your wings are healed. Chapter 318. First Peak's morning and evening meals were all eaten in the Eastern Dining Hall. Including Arbor, Murong Sun currently had 154 disciples under her name. Other than some disciples who were still in closed-door cultivation, everyone else was eating together. Everyone could call out each other's names and were very familiar with each other, so the atmosphere was harmonious. I heard third senior sister came back. She went out to train for so many years, so she's really amazing. A female disciple said with a smile. I've only seen senior sister Yi once before. She's the same as little junior sister, a cultivation maniac. She's in closed-door cultivation all year round, and can't be seen more than a few times. Master is here, master is here. Someone hastily called out, and all the whispers stopped as everyone turned to look at the door. Murong Sun walked in with a grin in her purple robes, followed by a woman in yellow who looked to be around 18 or 19 years old. She was Murong Sun's third disciple Yi Lingmin, who had not returned for many years. Sit, Lingmin. Murong Sun smiled faintly, and led Yi Lingmin to the main table to sit down. Yi Lingmin stood by the table without moving, her gaze coldly landing on the young girl next to her master. That girl sat there without moving, her small hand gently stroking a little chick in her arms. The little chick was lying on its back with a look of enjoyment on its fluffy face. Third junior sister is back. Su Shanshan stood up and bowed to Murong Sun before turning to nod at Yi Lingmin. Shui Xiao harumphed and pursed her lips disapprovingly. She secretly rolled her eyes at Yi Lingmin before turning around to bow to Murong Sun. Master, who is this little junior sister? Yi Lingmin asked, her voice crisp and cold like an icy spring on a tall mountain. She's here. Shui Xiao was truly amused by her third junior sister's antics. She knew that with third junior sister's proud and arrogant temperament, she would definitely latch onto Jojo without letting go. Murong Sun immediately reached out to stroke the little girl's head with a grin. This is your little junior sister, Arbor, my last disciple. Yi Lingmin chuckled and looked at Arbor with crossed arms. I heard on the way here that little junior sister has already advanced to a level 7 mystic cultivator, not long after entering the sect 4 years ago. However, after nearly 5 years, you've only advanced by 1 level, right? When everyone heard this, their expressions changed slightly. These words were not pleasant to hear. Little junior sister's aptitude was obvious to all. Although she had only advanced by 1 level in the past few years, she was now a level 8 mystic cultivator. However, she had already broken through to become a level 8 mystic cultivator at the age of a hairpin, so she was completely qualified to be called a genius. Indeed, Arbor didn't get angry. He just stared coldly at Yi Lingmin. She knew her body very well. Most of the Xian energy that she had absorbed in the mystical treasured land all these years went into Little Tree's stomach. A small portion was used by her to train her branch meridians. Right now, her first branch meridian was half a finger wide, so she could smoothly condense Mystic Conscious and use it to control the apparition of Mystic Conscious in her conscious for daily cultivation. A normal mystic cultivator's condensed mystic conscious definitely wouldn't exceed 10% of their mystic energy in the initial stage. After repeated training, it basically wouldn't exceed 50%. Those who could reach 60% were already abnormal. In other words, a level 8 mystic cultivator's mystic conscious basically wouldn't exceed level 4. However, Arbor was different. Arbor could condense 100% of all the mystic energy in her branch meridians into mystic conscious. Even so, she didn't use any of the mystic energy in her main meridian. Hence, although she was only a level 8 mystic cultivator, her mystic conscious had already reached level 8. This was absolutely inconceivable. A level 8 mystic cultivator has the qualifications to fight with me. Yi Lingmin suddenly moved and kicked the stool in front of her. The fourth watch ends today. See you tomorrow. Chapter 319. Yi Lingmin's sudden attack caught everyone off guard. No one expected that Yi Lingmin would suddenly throw a stool at little junior sister for no reason during a meal. Those who understood little junior sister's temperament couldn't help but cover their faces as they watched the stool fly towards little junior sister's head. Although third senior sister was very strong, little junior sister was never someone to be trifled with. Asterisk bang. Asterisk the stool was smashed apart by a wave of mystic energy and turned into wooden splinters in midair. Arbor coldly looked at Yi Lingmin. Ka. The little chick's feathers bristled, and it jumped onto the table. Arbor moved in that instant. Murong Sun was about to grab her youngest disciple when she saw the little fellow dashing over like a streak of light. The speed was so fast that it simply caused everyone present to be speechless. Murong Sun was stunned for a second before hastily standing up. However, she saw Miss Qiao leap in front of Yi Lingmin and elbowing her in the chest without another word. Yi Lingmin's pupils contracted, and she released mystic energy around her body. She thought she could force Miss Qiao back several steps with this. However, things didn't go as planned. Not only was Miss Qiao not repelled by her mystic energy, but she also took a few steps closer and heavily landed her elbow on Yi Lingmin's chest. Yi Lingmin felt pain in her chest, and she nimbly retreated backwards. At the same time, Arbor lightly leaped again and leaped into the air. Levitating was something every level 7 mystic cultivator could do. The only difference was how long they could levitate. People with solid mystic energy foundations could levitate for a bit longer without a problem. But those without enough mystic energy naturally couldn't support levitating for a long time. Yi Lingmin couldn't help but smile when she saw little junior sister levitating. She originally wanted to say, "Little junior sister, levitating isn't anything strange." However, when her gaze landed on the next scene, and she discovered that the little figure levitating in the air suddenly disappeared in front of her, she was completely dumbfounded. Collective gasps came from the dining hall. Everyone saw with their own eyes that the little fellow's figure abruptly turned from in front of senior sister Yi to behind her. Some disciples couldn't help but exclaim, "Senior sister Yi." Yi Lingmin also felt a trace of danger on the spot, and all the hairs on her body stood on end. When she suddenly turned her head, she met her junior sister's cold eyes. She was caught off guard and a heavy punch landed on her back, sending her flying forward. Bang! The first table was destroyed by the surge of profound energy. Bang bang! The second and third tables were continuously shattered into pieces by the surging profound energy. It wasn't until Yi Lingmin's body hit the fifth round table that she smashed the table to the ground with a bang. Yi Lingmin pressed on her sprained neck, unable to control the shock in her heart. Abruptly turning her head, she saw a plain silhouette suddenly pounce on her. Half of the silhouette's body was on top of her, and the little hand was tightly holding a pair of bamboo chopsticks, fiercely aiming at her eyes. "Do you want to die?" Little junior sister's cold voice suddenly resounded in the dining hall, which was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. The end of the bamboo chopsticks was only a millimeter away from Yi Lingmin's bulging eyeballs. She could clearly see every grain on the bamboo chopsticks. Yi Lingmin was scared stiff on the spot and subconsciously closed her eyes, cold sweat pouring down her body. Murong Sun nearly choked on her own saliva. Oh my, the two disciples started fighting each other. Chapter 320. Xue Xiao stood on the side with a chuckle and crossed her arms. She calmly looked at her proud and arrogant third junior sister. Haha, you kicked an iron plate. Small fry. You started a fight as soon as you arrived, right? You're out of luck. Xue Xiao and Su Shanshan usually sparred with the little fellow, so they naturally understood their little junior sister's actual combat level. If you think little junior sister is merely a level 8 mystic cultivator, then you're not far from death. Little junior sister didn't just comprehend the ultimate technique of levitating and teleporting in actual combat. Even Master once said that although she and senior sister Su had broken through to become great level 10 mystic cultivators, they might not be able to defeat little junior sister in terms of actual combat ability even if they worked together. From this, it could be seen that the portion little junior sister displayed was definitely not her full strength. Perhaps only Master knew how many trump cards little junior sister had, and what level of actual combat ability she had. Murong Sun's figure fluttered and arrived in front of her youngest disciple. She pulled the little fellow to her side and stroked her head. All right, good child. Don't be angry with your third senior sister. Your third senior sister doesn't have any bad intentions. She just has high standards and an eccentric personality. You can just beat her to vent your anger, but you mustn't beat her to death. We're going to fight the 5 factions in 2 months, so if you injure her, we'll lose a fighting force. Be good and eat with Master. You must be starving, little fellow. Yi Lingmin had just recovered from the shock of being defeated by little junior sister, but then she was struck by Master's words until she was utterly disheartened. Wasn't Master's heart too biased? Anyone could tell who was Master's true disciple, and who was a fake disciple that she picked up. Yi Lingmin felt extremely stifled, and struggled to stand up from the ground. Her pretty face darkened as she said, I request to fight again. Murong Sun's face also darkened. She turned around and yelled at her third disciple. Can't you have a proper meal? If you don't want to eat, then get out. Don't cause trouble here. Look at how many tables and chairs you've smashed. You'll have to find someone to fix them again tomorrow. You'll have to pay for the repairs. Yi Lingmin's face turned completely green. Did she smash the tables and chairs? Okay, she was the one who smashed it. But why? That was because she was punched out by little junior sister. Okay. Logically speaking, she shouldn't be the one to take the blame. Master, I don't believe you. I'm a level 10 mystic cultivator. There's no way I'll lose to her. Yi Lingmin stiffened her neck and refused to back down. Su Shanshan sighed. She stepped forward and gently tugged at her. She patted her shoulder and said, Third junior sister, this isn't a matter of cultivation level. In fact, even I am not junior sister's match. Yi Lingmin turned to stare at Su Shanshan in shock. After a while she sneered, Liar. Eldest senior sister, you must have deliberately gone easy on her. Because she was the little junior sister. Because she was the little junior sister that Master doted on the most. So all of you must be impatient to befriend her. Murong Sun's face completely darkened, and she coldly stared deeply at Yi Lingmin. She snorted and said, It looks like you haven't improved at all after going out for so many years. Now immediately go to Sky Peak's Duantian Cliff, and reflect on your past. If you can't figure out why Master wants you to face the wall for 1 day, then you'll stay there for 1 day. If you can't figure it out in 2 days, then you'll stay there for 2 days. If you can't figure it out in 8 to 10 years, then you'll face the wall for 8 to 10 years. Scram. Yi Lingmin's eyes misted over, and she stared deeply at Murong Sun. She abruptly stomped her feet and ran out of the dining room. Chapter 321. When the disciples saw their master getting angry, they all kept quiet out of fear and stood there with their heads bowed, not daring to make a sound. Only a crisp and cold voice rang out. She's so slow-witted that she might not be able to figure it out even after 100 years. Did you want her to pass away in a sitting posture there by throwing her on that cliff? What cliff? Everyone. Little junior sister's venomous mouth was truly unparalleled. She either acted like a saw-toothed gourd all day and didn't utter a word, or she would make people feel uncomfortable all over, and so ashamed that they wished for nothing more than to find a hole to crawl into. Murong-sun looked back at her little disciple with a stifled heart, and walked up to hold her little hand. "Can't you comfort Master?" Arbor shook his little head. "If she wasn't your disciple, I would have had 100 ways to kill her in 3 breaths. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at this little junior sister, who only reached their shoulders. All the disciples of First Peak knew that the little stoic never told a lie. Since she said it, it was naturally the truth. It was also because little junior sister went easy on her when she saw the abnormally dangerous and quick battle just now. However, third senior sister was completely unaware and didn't even appreciate it. There was nothing wrong with being arrogant in itself, but being arrogant to the point of being condescending and blindly arrogant and conceited was a bit unreasonable. Murong-sun only wanted her third disciple to understand that there was always someone better than her in this world. Murong-sun was a bit disappointed that her temper still couldn't be properly ground down after having people accompany her for so many years. Among her 4 personal disciples, her eldest disciple, Su Shanshan, had a cold and apathetic personality. Her talent and strength were decent, but she could stick to her nature and treat people very mildly. She wouldn't be overly arrogant and conceited. Her second disciple, Xue Xiao, had a bit of a reckless and impulsive personality. Thankfully, she was obedient and could strictly abide by her master's orders and restrain herself. Murong-sun only wanted to sigh when her third disciple, Yi Lingmin, was mentioned. Yi Lingmin was originally excessively arrogant, and she didn't know what she experienced after being sent out for so many years. But her temper didn't improve at all. Instead, she became even more rampant. Among the 4 disciples, the one who was the most reassuring and also the most heartbreaking was probably her youngest disciple. Although this child was young, she was extremely intelligent. Although her temperament was cold, her interpersonal skills were not inferior to that of an adult. She did not need to worry too much about anything. It was also because of this that Murong-sun's heart ached for her youngest disciple even more. Dinner was disrupted, and everyone could only squeeze at the remaining few round tables to have a simple meal. After that, Murong-sun announced the name list for this year's 3 sects and 5 factions competition. Each of the 3 peaks sent out 10 disciples, making a total of 30 people to participate in the competition. Yi Lingmin's name was removed from the list of 30 names by Murong-sun. When Yi Lingmin heard the news, she did not eat or drink for 5 days and 5 nights at Duantian Cliff. She knelt and did not get up until she fainted. When someone informed Xiao Mu of this news, the little stoic merely lifted her eyelids indifferently. She then closed the book in her hand and stood up to leave gracefully. Several days later, all of the Holy Water Sect's disciples from the 3 peaks who were heading to Xixia Valley to participate in the competition were gathered in the open space in front of the sect master's peak's bamboo building. The girls, who were around 20 years old on average, all stood in front of the bamboo building with graceful figures and high spirits. Faint confident smiles hung on their lips. The sect master stood in front of everyone with a benevolent countenance and said with a chuckle, "Children, you will depart for Xixia Valley in 3 days to represent our holy water sect in this competition." Chapter 322. Before this sect master will allow you all to head to the lowest level of the mystical treasured land. I implore Lady Holy Water to bestow a drop of holy water to each of you. The sect master said with a grin as she lovingly looked at these young grand disciples with outstanding talent. When the sect master finished speaking, wild joy appeared on all the disciples' faces. The senior and junior sisters from the 3 peaks all looked at each other, and they could see a trace of joy spreading from each other's eyes. Only the little stoic expressionlessly stood in First Peak's team behind Su Shanshan and Xue Xiao. She coldly stared ahead without a trace of joy in her eyes. The disciples from the 3 peaks stood in 3 rows, and the little stoic stood in the 3rd row of the 1st row. Standing in the same row as the little stoic was 2nd peak's disciple, Chang Yushi. She was also one of 2nd peak's peak master, Yang Shirong's personal disciples. Miss Chang stealthily peeked at the little stoic, and suddenly cleared her throat. "Sect master." This disciple heard that people from the 5 factions will also participate in this 3-sect competition. The competition is abnormally intense. The disciples our sect sent to participate in the competition are mostly mystic cultivators level 10 and above. But among them little junior sister, this level 8 mystic cultivator, seems to have replaced first peak senior sister Ye's spot. This seems to be a bit against the rules. In the second row of the third row, a 15-year-old girl in red hastily turned her head to look at the aloof and expressionless Miss Chiao. The sect leader made a sound, and just as she was about to say something to smooth things over, she heard a clear and cold voice. Senior sister, do you want to spar with me? Morong Sun's lips twitched when she heard this. Chang Yushi crossed her arms in front of her chest, and turned to Arbor with a light chuckle. Could it be that little junior sister can voluntarily withdraw from the team this time if she loses? What if senior sister loses? The little girl also turned her icy face and expressionlessly looked at Chang Yushi in front of her. Chang Yushi inexplicably felt a chill invade her body. If senior sister loses, then of course I'll accept my loss and be your follower for the rest of the journey. What do you think? After he finished speaking, his eyes flashed craftily. His fist was wrapped in profound energy, and he quickly swung it in front of Arbor. Arbor neither dodged nor evaded. He directly stretched out a white and tender fist and collided with the fist. In a split second, the fluctuation of profound energy caused a violent gust of wind to blow, causing everyone's clothes and hair to flutter high up in the air. Young Shirong raised her head to take a look, only to see that idiot disciple of hers flying out of the sky like a deflated ball, drawing a perfect arc in the air before crashing into the sovereign's bamboo forest with a loud boom. The sect master's expression changed immediately. He slapped his thigh and rushed into the bamboo forest anxiously. Oh my bamboo! The disciples of the Three Peaks stared at the little girl with their mouths agape. None of them made a sound for a long time. It wasn't until the sect master angrily returned with Chang Yushi in tattered clothes that all the disciples recovered from their shock. Their gazes uniformly turned towards the unlucky Chang Yushi. Oh my waist! Chang Yushi placed one hand on her waist, her entire face scrunched up as she whined. Little junior sister, you're too ruthless. Fine, senior sister lost. Senior sister accepts her loss, and will be your follower from now on. Young Shirong covered her face with her hands and thought, how did I end up with such a foolish disciple like you? I don't need it. These three cold words immediately petrified everyone present. Chapter 323. Chang Yushi struggled to get down from the sect master's hand. She clutched her waist with one hand and stared at Arbor with wide eyes. Little junior sister, why don't you need it? I'm someone who accepts defeat and dares to admit defeat. What a waste of food. Miss Chiao threw Chang Yushi an emotionless gaze before spreading her arms and flying out. With two whooshing sounds, the delicate and small figure instantly leaped onto several tall bamboo tips. Her toes lightly tapped on them, and she swiftly disappeared before everyone's eyes. Wow, what a fast speed. Is she really only a level 8 mystic cultivator? The disciples whispered into each other's ears, their gazes deeply fixated in the direction of their little junior sister's departure. Yang Shirong clasped her hands and looked up at the sky with a bitter expression. She was originally my disciple. In the afternoon, Arbor received news that she was to head to the mystical treasured land. Several years ago, the little girl who needed her master's help to successfully reach the mystical treasured land was now able to enter and exit the treasured land on her own without needing anyone's assistance. When she bent down and entered the cave in the mountain wall, she discovered that all the senior sisters who had gathered together in the morning had arrived. Everyone was gathered in twos and threes, talking excitedly about something. When Arbor entered the cave, all the voices abruptly stopped. At this time, a little girl with a round face and dressed in bright red ran out from the Third Peaks team. She grinned as she walked up to Arbor with her hands clasped behind her back, completely ignoring her cold face. She pointed at herself and asked, "Do you still recognize me? You are Doya from the Alava tribe." The little stoic gazed at her. Doya immediately smiled sweetly, and the small dimple on her left cheek deepened. "Little junior sister, I've heard a lot about you. Please take care of me in the future." Doya cupped her fists and raised them slightly as she looked at Arbor with a chuckle. A faint, almost imperceptible smile slid across Arbor's lips, and she lowered her head to glance at Doya's hand. I didn't expect it to be nearly 5 years since we parted at the mountain gate. Doya pulled her little hand and walked towards the Third Peaks team. Little junior sister, although you're not on the Third Peak, all the senior sisters on the Third Peak know about you. Especially senior sister Lee. She praises you in front of us every day. You're the best junior sister in her heart. All of us added together can't compare to you. The senior sister Li Doya mentioned was Li Ling, who had participated in the Qinghe town operation with Arbor and the others. At this moment, Li Ling ran over and patted Doya's head lightly. What nonsense are you talking about in front of junior sister? After saying that, she turned to Arbor and smiled. Junior sister, ignore her. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's go and have a chat with senior sister Yu Gui. Aha! The sect leader deliberately raised her voice, causing everyone to stop what they were doing and look at her in unison. The sect leader and the 3 peak leaders stepped into the cave one after another. Looking at the 30 energetic young faces in front of them, they smiled and nodded in satisfaction. Children, follow me to the lowest level right now. The sect leader looked at them and reminded. Remember, you can only beg once. If Lady Holy Water rejects you, you must not pester her, and continue begging to avoid negative consequences. Yes. The disciples answered in unison. Afterwards, they turned around and followed the sect leader and the 3 peak leaders into the underground passage. Chapter 324. It was also Arbor's first time going to the 3rd floor of the mystical treasure land. She usually cultivated on the 2nd floor, and had never set foot on the 3rd floor. As they descended the stone steps, everyone held their breaths and did not dare to make any noise. At the entrance to the 3rd floor, everyone was blocked in front of a huge circular stone slab. The sect master and the 3 peak masters worked together to inject dark force into the stone slab. 4 dark forces formed 4 corners and twisted the stone slab slowly. After a series of creaking sounds, the stone slab suddenly opened inwards. Come in, the sect master ordered, and everyone hurriedly followed in. When Xiaomu saw so many people squeezing forward, she retreated backwards. Only after everyone had rushed in did she slowly enter. Raising his eyes to look around, his gaze indifferently swept across the entire cave. This stone cave was not much different from the place she cultivated on the 2nd floor. The only difference was that it was extremely cold here, much colder than the 2nd floor. There was an oval platform in the middle with a few flights of stairs. A circle of stone troughs was lit with flames, illuminating the entire cave. The 30 disciples all stared at the oval platform in the middle. There was an offering table on it with 3 animals, fruits, and vegetables. A blue ball of water, the size of 2 fists, was swaying in the middle of the offering table. It trembled slightly and emitted a faint light. A female disciple swallowed her saliva, and was the first to rush forward. She knelt down in front of the offering table and kowtowed. Lord Holy Water, please give me a drop of holy water. I will engrave it in my heart, and will never forget Lord Holy Water's gift. Arbor only felt that the scene was a little funny. Why did she kneel down and kowtow without saying anything? The ball of water did not respond at all. It kept rolling on the offering table, and the small ball of water emitted a faint halo. After a long time, the group of female disciples below looked at each other, and secretly raised their heads to look at their master. Cough, child, come down. The sect master shook her head. Woo. The female disciple failed to beg for water, and ran down the stairs while wiping her tears. She rushed to the back of the group with a grief-stricken look. Arbor only felt that it was very strange. Wasn't it just a drop of water? Beg for what? Beg my ass. Sigh, Lady Holy Water is becoming more and more arrogant and unapproachable. The sect master sighed emotionally. Lady Holy Water, I'm Doya. I hope you can give me a drop of God's water. I want to represent the sect in battle. I want to raise my cultivation level before the battle. Thank you, Lady Holy Water. Doya cheerfully finished what she wanted to say, and stared with wide eyes at the gently trembling water ball on the offering table. Gulp. The crowd, who thought that the holy water was still unresponsive, watched as the ball of water began to sway. The round water ball gradually stretched and turned into the shape of a water droplet. Suddenly, an opening appeared in front of the water droplet, as if the water droplet had opened its mouth and spat out a small water droplet. The sparkling water droplet swayed in the air and flew into Doya's hands, who was holding it with a smile on her face. Doya hurriedly took out the bottle that she had prepared beforehand and filled it with a drop of water. She hugged and kissed the bottle happily. "Master, I got a drop of God's water." Doya looked back at Luyin happily. Luyin had a smile on her face as she thought that her disciple was indeed a good child with good fortune. Arbor only felt that it was a little shocking and turned his face to the side expressionlessly. Chapter 325. Next, all the senior sisters began to show off their abilities and asked for the blessing of the holy water. The scene made people laugh a few times. One of the big sisters hugged the leg of the offering table and cried for the blessing of the holy water, as if she was going to save the whole world. However, the holy water did not respond at all. This big sister should have left, but she insisted on showing her existence in front of the holy water. In the end, she was dragged away by the second peak's peak master, Yang Shirong, with a dark face. When she was being dragged away, the big sister was crying the entire way. She grabbed onto the legs of the senior sisters and hugged them like pillars, making the senior sisters feel extremely embarrassed. In the end, Yang Shirong couldn't take it anymore. She slapped the devilish brat's head, knocking her unconscious before dragging her away. Arbor was speechless. She finally realized that the second peak was a place that specialized in producing funny people. The process of the first peak's disciples begging for water was more normal. However, what angered Xiaomu was that even her eldest senior sister, Su Shanshan, did not obtain a single drop of that lousy water's gift. Only 2 people in the entire first peak received a drop of water. How preposterous! Thus, Miss Qiao's impression of the holy water rose from disdain to disgust. Out of the 29 senior sisters, only 9 had asked for the holy water. Regarding this, the sect master even heaved a sigh of relief and happily told everyone that the holy water was in a good mood today. Arbor could only chuckle in response. Suddenly, everyone turned to look at her. Xiaomu was baffled as she stood there without moving. Su Shanshan hurriedly said, "Little junior sister, it's your turn. Go." Doya clenched her fists at her and encouraged her. "Little junior sister, work hard and beg the holy water. You can definitely do it." Arbor did not even think of begging that Sundra holy water. Would she beg someone? What a joke. Even in her previous life, she had never begged for anything. Now she wanted to beg for a drop of water? Go wherever you want to go. No need. Xiaomu was disinterested, and she turned around to leave. However, after taking a small step, she could not move forward no matter how hard she tried. Her entire body stiffly turned her back to everyone, and she forcefully dragged her small steps. King hell, it didn't move. Only she knew that her feet were entangled by a transparent tree vine, and she was not allowed to move no matter what. What the hell? Ball is starting to trick its owner again. Master Silver, go. Don't be a coward. Go up and take down that ball of water. Wah. That's holy water that's hard to come by in 10,000 years. Oh, you're just a tree, yet you're actually howling like a wolf. Do you have to be so excited? Besides, who was scared? Which eye of yours saw that I was a coward? That's called disdain. How could the other people in the sect know about the little girl's current situation? They even surrounded her and tried to persuade her. Little junior sister, this is necessary. My dear disciple, the divine water you obtained here is different from the divine water you fused with the mountain gate a few years ago. This concentration is more than 8 times that of yours. 1 drop is equivalent to the 8 drops you had back then, so don't foolishly give up on this opportunity. Yang Shirong's earnest advice was immediately met with an eye roll from Murong Sun. Who are you calling your disciple? Taking in random disciples all day long, how many years has it been? Murong Sun harumphed. Miss Chow pulled back her steps and turned around with a dark face, glaring at that drop of water with a sharp gaze. Why did she feel like little junior sister came with ill intentions? All the disciples took 2 steps back. Arbor ran up the steps and waved her hand, and the black ferrule appeared in her hand. The sect master and the 3 peak masters were stupefied and reached out their hands at the same time with trepidation. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.